I'll introduce you to the smooth sound of my voice.
Yes.
Alright, and we're back.
Evening.
Shia LaBeouf.
Take 2 of the Sons of Aries podcast
Beautiful.
with Jason Cox, Dan Saberi, and Matt Brown.
Oh my god, it's the only time in the public forum my name's been
No,
pronounced
go.
correctly.
No, go.
Now say something.
No, please stay.
Do something funny.
Well, we were just talking before about the, what was it called?
The Big Five.
No, the one we were talking about last time.
The Enneagram.
The Enneagram, yes.
Yeah, 1 to 9.
Which is 1 to 9, interconnected, one way of measuring personality types or traits. And we're now going to move on and talk about the Big 5 personality traits, or Big 10, because they're broken down into 2.
Oh yes.
And what we're going to do is I did one of these reports about 5 years ago now, and yeah, we're going to introduce what it is, and then we're going to run through my report. We'll talk about all the different factors and whether it matches or.
And at the end you can leave a comment as to whether you think Matt's a psychopath.
Wink, wink. Yeah, so it's the way the test runs is you get asked, as normally, you get asked a series of questions. I think it's about 120 something questions. It's quite a lot. And your results get compared to tens of thousands of other people who have taken the test. There's quite a lot of scientific, psychological backing. The focus is on the linguistics of the questions, the kind of words. There's a heavy focus on the words that are used.
Like prompts for you to elicit a certain response.
I think so. Or the kind of language that's used with regards to certain questions that are then associated to the different categories. I think I haven't read the papers in a while. Jordan Peterson does a lot of work on this. I think it's his test, actually.
Yeah,
he's done
Big Five.
He's done a lot of work on it.
Yeah.
So the categories are broken down into agreeableness, conscientiousness, openness to experience, extroversion, and neuroticism. Thank you. All right. Any comments or anything you want to say with regards to what the test is, your understanding of it, or
no, just other than, as you say, it seems to be the most scientifically valid, or at least most backed one. So not a bad way to start this little journey inside.
Beautiful. I've lost it, so give me 2
I think
seconds.
in relation to like the Myers-Briggs test, which can sort of put you in a bit of a hole, this is a little bit more expansive in its sort of grading, so you can get more of a detailed sort of answer to the questions.
What's the thing's more valid when it doesn't just give you a cartoon character as your answer? That always helps.
Yeah. Rather than being 1 in 16, you're a set of percentages.
More like a football manager attributes than like being put in a box. So what is Matt's finishing?
Hang on. So I am. Oh, don't worry about that. So I'm trying to figure out what to read and what not, because this is a big report. It's 38 pages long, so I'm just trying to be discriminate with regards. So I'll start with agreeableness. My score is moderately high, which is 71st percentile. So out of 100 people, I would be more agreeable than 70, and less agreeable than 29.
No, you wouldn't.
Nice, very good. So I'll just
With the low-hanging fruit there.
That's the one to go for. They're the ones I can reach.
So agreeableness is a very complex trait with marked positive and negative elements all along its distribution. Because of this, higher scores and lower scores need to be explained at the same time. People in high agreeableness are nice, so compliant, nurturing, kind, naively trusting, and conciliatory. However, because of their tendency to avoid conflict, they often dissemble and hide what they think. People low in agreeableness are not so nice. Dan just dabbed. Stubborn, dominant, harsh, skeptical, competitive, and in the extreme, even predatory. However, they tend to be straightforward, even blunt, so they know where they stand. People with moderately high levels of agreeableness are seen by others as cooperative, warm, and considerate. They are likely to look for and even sometimes to see the best in others, and are interpersonally tolerant, an attitude that is much valued by agreeable people. They do not like seeing someone's feelings get hurt and are concerned about the emotional state of others, preferring peace and harmony. They tend somewhat towards submissiveness rather than dominance, particularly if also below average in neuroticism. So I'll pause there, just reflect on what's been said. Anything jump out to you, or?
Well, I think the first thing we should do is work out if these are reasonably accurate. So would we agree that kind of is a fair reflection of how we perceive Matt and indeed how he perceives himself?
I think so, yeah. I think he's very high in agreeableness. I think he doesn't push back on a lot of things, not in an aggressive way anyway.
Yeah, I think you are correctly seen as I dislike this term, but as a chilled out guy.
Yeah.
No one's ever like, oh, Matt's gonna fucking kick off about this.
No. Yeah. Quite easygoing. Yeah.
And that's in a good way. That's as opposed to everyone knows people who are seen as like doormats or wet blankets. No, I don't think anyone's ever thought that about you.
No.
Unless they were like hyper sociopath level.
Right. But that was my next question, which was because I don't think that way of myself either. Like I said, we said in the last recording, like and we'll get to assertiveness later on because that's one of the characteristics of extroversion. But yeah, no, it's kind of it's like a weird tension in myself because it's like I have things I take issue with, things I think about things, but I'm also very careful about how I word things because I don't want to hurt someone's feelings.
Yeah, and I think that comes into it. That you actually do watch what you say, and that comes into being agreeable. That you take care in, like I say, stuff you say. Whereas a lot of people wouldn't sort of think that way and just say whatever they think.
Sure.
Without recourse.
Just indiscriminately spaff out what they think. So I guess the real question for an agreeable person would be, are you being agreeable for the benefit of the other person or to protect yourself or out of some kind of fear of not being liked?
Well, like an ingenuine sort of...
Yeah, like a kind of more Machiavellian agreeableness,
like,
I suppose.
Or, if you're
which seems like a weird thing, Machiavellian.
Yeah, I was going to say, because it seems a little oxymoronic, however you say the word, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know, it's like a... Well, I think this being a part of people's temperament and personalities is it's not something that you're doing with an end. It's something that's emergent about you. So like no one's being agreeable. I mean, because I guess if you were being agreeable for the sake of achieving something, then you're putting on a facade of agreeableness.
That was actually my next question. Like, so is this testing what you actually are inside, or how you are manifested?
Perceived. Well, I guess you could game the test, right? I mean, if you, I mean, we were saying just before we hit record about my low neuroticism score, that at the point when I took the test, I was going through this period of change in my personality where formerly I'd sort of made efforts to stifle my emotions and to close those things off because of how painful they were, and so. And I'd done that since I was a kid, and so it was very well practiced. And so I was in this transition between doing that and trying to feel the things I was feeling rather than to shun them. But the questions I answered, because now I would say I've always been a fairly sensitive, shy, easily embarrassed. I feel my feelings. I just didn't like that I felt them, and they were annoying, and they got in the way, and so you try to shut them up. But so it's the point I'm making is that I perhaps subconsciously gamed the test by not answering to how I deeply felt about my proclivity for negative emotion, but I was answering with the facade that I'd constructed, the personality that I'd constructed as a defense mechanism. So I guess you can game the test.
No, I get it. I think for the purpose of this, we should take it as though the answers given were
honest at the time.
Correct.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're just going to get into some kind of polemic-y
bullshit
about ourselves.
The issue you run into with taking tests yourself like this is that you are answering in a way that a lot of people would answer that how they want to be seen, like you say, rather than what they actually are.
Oh, the best way to gauge yourself is definitely
in a group.
By having other people tell you what you are, essentially.
Yeah. Well, so I think the test is a little different because one, it's behind a paywall. It's not free.
Yeah, correct.
So it's not something you can just go online and do. Mm. It's like £10. It's not a lot of money, but it's money. Mm-hmm. And when you when you sign up to do it, now obviously you can ignore all of this advice, but the advice given is things like, don't be hungry, don't be in a bad mood, don't be depressed, and make sure you have the time to consider your answers that you give. So like, I think there's efforts made to make sure that it's
as genuine as
possible, setting aside the fact that human beings are snaky little creatures and they can always game a thing if they want.
Oh shit, I did mine on a crash diet just when England were kicking off in the Euros. Oh, is that wrong?
Just after Lampard's goal was disallowed.
Oh, no.
Neuroticism 100.
we don't talk about that. But yeah, I guess that was the root of my question is, are these things measuring like the true internal you as you perceive it, and like, we'll take it as gospel truth, or is it your actions? Well, are your actions actually the true answer? Do you know what I mean? So let's say if someone is really like on fucking fire inside, but they're smiling politely outside and being calm, are they actually very neurotic, or does the fact that they're not presenting it mean they're not neurotic?
I think that you can... I don't know, because it's this weird kind of like duality between what you think and how you act, right? Because you can be really angry about something, right? And then seem to everyone in the room as if you aren't, and as if you're dealing with something very, very well, despite the fact that inside you are fucking seething that something that has happened that has elicited that response. Now, you could put that down to like emotional self-control and sort of discipline, or just a sort of, I don't know, tact, where it's like, well, yes, I'm angry about something, but me stomping around, yelling and kicking about isn't conducive to providing myself with a solution. So yes, while I feel these emotions, I'm going to conduct myself in a different way. So that's like the external manifestation. Although again, you've gone through that process, which is an internal manifestation, to result in the external manifestation of calm and considered action. So
that basically
answers your question.
Not a particular answer, which is fine.
Yeah.
I think what's an interesting thing that we can do throughout this examination is reflect back to Jace, actually. Because number one, you haven't done this test. Number two, in all of our speculations that we've done about this kind of thing, we always tend to agree that you're pretty much in the middle, nothing to write home about on any of these metrics, but obviously you'd be very low neuroticism, I think, but that's for later. So I think that's not a bad way to use you as kind of like a control.
Yeah. You think I would sort of... Matt's just getting himself a drink.
Sorry.
He's good, he's back. So you're saying, out of us, that I'd sit sort of closer to the middle of the park on most of the things, so...
That's a bit harsh. What? Middle of the road on all things.
Well, as in
more
of a balanced...
competence, yeah.
Balanced sort of way of being.
Well, I don't know. I suppose we can say till you've done the test, I guess.
I've given him the equivalent test that I've verified as
I've given
the same kind of...
No. I think if we do this, I think it would be interesting for a later episode to... I actually do one. Like, I'm happy to pay for it. Like,
you fucking do one. You agreeable cunt.
So not so middle of the road.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. My bad.
It's alright. I may be agreeable when I'm paying attention.
But I guess we bring this back to what's the my obsession. What's the use for all these things, right? So how do you feel this has benefited you or been a detriment to you in terms of being pretty highly agreeable?
Or finding that.
Well, I mean, one, I kind of knew it anyway. Even if I'd been through that period of building a false personality, I was building a false personality because of my state of politeness and sort of agreeableness and not wanting to hurt people's feelings, and then being frustrated by being frustrated by that part of my personality and wanting to change it, and then doing so by force.
Sure.
But I was a kid, so it's like, whatever. No, I don't know. Well, the website's called Understand Myself.
Yeah. And
I think the reason why it's called that, and why you've probably done the research in the first place, out of curiosity maybe, but is one of the beliefs I have that I've kind of applied during my time of university and generally is that, well, you can't if you don't understand the environment that you are in, and there's a problem, the likelihood of you acting appropriately to bring about a desired solution is basically zero. Right? You need, like, if you can think about that scientifically, right? Like, if there's some strange happenings going on around you, or some weird phenomena, and it's in the way or causing a problem, and you aren't going to be able to solve that problem unless you have a sufficient enough understanding of what's happening for you to be able to intervene and bring about the desired effect. Because if you don't understand what's happening, and then you apply a solution, and that solution doesn't map onto what's happening around you, then your intervention is not going to bring about the desired effect that you wanted. And so I imagine it would be the same with something like your personality, although that's a little less objective and a bit more fluid or subjective. That, well, if you are behaving in certain ways that you're not necessarily conscious of, and that they're bringing about problems in your life, say for example with agreeableness, because it's said you can be too docile, you can be a bit of a doormat, people can walk over you, you don't say what you think because you don't want to hurt people's feelings, right? Well, that can have negative impacts for someone, because you don't get to say what you think, and then you resent everyone around you for not allowing you the space to do so. You become frustrated by being taken advantage of by people who recognise that you're polite and meek or whatever. I don't happen to be, but that could be something that happens. And you're like, and if this frustrates you, and you're like, well, what do I do about this? And you don't understand that it's because you're just too agreeable.
Yeah, you just have to call them a prick.
Yeah,
and you feel better.
And it's like,
no, really.
Well, not calling them a prick, but it's like, if you don't realise that the solution to your problem is practicing being less agreeable, without
by calling you a prick.
but you don't have to go to calling people a prick to be less agreeable.
Well, no, that was fairly blunt instrument, but
yeah,
like an all-round point.
But this is the point. The point is the same. We're agreeing.
Of course we are.
Agree, damn it.
So what would be your experience of a conflict situation where it's like thrust upon you? That's different. If like someone just clocks you in the street, obviously you've got to be disagreeable.
Sure.
But like a conflict that is there and no needs broaching, like you have to say something to someone that is going to cause some shit. What's your experience of that situation like? Do you sack it off for as long as possible? Do you kind of like bite the bullet or what?
Well, no. Well, now I have a general policy of saying what I think. And I'm imperfect in that. There are some things I'm not saying to some people that I perhaps should. But like by and large, I would say that, well, especially over the last 5 years, that's kind of weird, because I've kind of always said what I thought. But again, there's the whole me pretending not to be the person that I was, sort of, I don't know, not deep down, but like the person who I was pretending not to be. He always said what he thought. Not to speak of myself in the third person, but
that's your shadow.
He always said what he thought, and it was always blunt and horrible or whatever it was, right? Mm-hmm. Not very well thought through, but
was probably
let's. So my relationships with women, I have never been able to tell people how I feel. I'm way better at it now, but for like my entire 20s, I could show interest, I could be alluring, I could acquire myself someone to be with, but then when it actually came down to the nitty gritty of communicating with someone you're in a relationship with, I just failed miserably. I just was unable to say what I wanted, how I felt, or I was embarrassed to do so.
Do you feel like you kind of weren't allowed?
No, it's not. I wasn't allowed. It was that I don't know. I guess I was just scared of doing it. I was just scared of saying what I wanted, either for fear of not getting it, or for it being off-putting, or I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, this is not super relevant to the agreeableness part, but.
I think it's very relevant because we're getting down to the core of it, right? So basically, through this, we're not trying to. I think anyone who's on some kind of self-discovery journey, at risk of calling it something awfully cliche, is you're trying to get down to the root of your own programming, right? Because everyone can see you can see what you're putting out there, whether or not it's real. Because I know when I'm calling someone a twat, but I'm just like, yeah, but why am I calling them a twat?
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah.
Maybe put in quite blunt terms. You'll get used to this, listeners. But do you see what I mean? It's very much about finding what the truth is. So I think whether or not you know it is an equally interesting and valid answer because it always says something.
Sure.
So let's move on to Jay. So our control, our petri dish for the good bacteria or the middling bacteria. So what would you say is your relationship with conflicts? That's basically what agreeableness is measuring, right?
I tend to, it can swing both ways for me. So I judge it on a sort of by person basis. Like with some people I wouldn't say stuff, but with a lot of others I would openly say exactly what I thought, like straight up. Like in terms of like the work environment of things, I've called people all sorts straight up into their face. And then there's others which I would not, because I just think there's certain people that you just know it's just not a good idea for long term. Whereas others, you can sort of, when you have like a fight with a mate, you disagree, whatever, and you can sort of get past it quite easily. There's a lot of people like that which but the ones which you think it's going to ruin because especially in the work environment, right, you got to be with them day in, day out, whatever. So I take those and, like I say, base by base,
case by case,
that's it, and judge it like that way if it's going to be a long-term issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think it's more likely you'll avoid conflict if the person is like very, very agreeable or very, very disagreeable? So would you fear more that they go to pieces or that person's going to bite back and it's all going to go fucking tits up?
I think both ends of those spectrums, like the more extremes. Yeah. But I would, if in a like a serious case, I wouldn't go off on someone at the extremes. Yeah.
Don't want to make someone cry.
Yeah, but if it's like in a joking way, I would do it with those people.
That conforms perfectly with your agreeableness being about 50 then. Nice. Do you remember what my score was for agreeableness when we did this?
Like 90.
It was like what, 9?
I think it was like 1. I think it was like ridiculously low.
No, because I think all those people are in prison.
Well, they're not doing the test. Exactly. So, and I remember.
No, I meant but it's like out of the percentile is like, I guess it's measured by the people who've done the test. So fair enough. Carry on.
Yeah. But the point is, I don't have it, but it was ridiculously low. And obviously, what was my response to seeing this result?
No, fuck off.
This is bullshit.
She's like, oh, for fuck's sake, man. But dude, it's weird. I actually have a surprising relationship with conflict in that I don't actually like it. It makes me anxious, but I feel compelled to do it because otherwise I'm being a pussy. Like it has to be done. It has to be said.
Yeah, sometimes I really enjoy it, and then sometimes, like you, I do feel like awkward doing it. So the other times I would leave it in those ways. The people that I think it would be a long lasting. Awkwardness.
Or is it the same for you as it is for me? And that sometimes something's annoying you, but you're like, oh, I'm hard enough to just swallow this, and I don't need to bring it up.
Yeah.
Because it's like, if I do this, then I'm outsourcing my neuroticism onto this person, and there's kind of no point. Because they're just going to get pissy, and then the function of what's going on will no longer happen because they'll be emotional about it. I think that's about right. But I can be. It's often genuinely quite selfish. But I'm like, well, I won't say it because I want this thing to continue, or I don't want them to hate me. But like I say, if it's a person in the street who you've seen me go for people in the street, not like necessarily swinging, but just like, oi! Whereas I think that would probably make you cringe to imagine yourself doing that.
No, it depends. I don't mind yelling at people. Well, not yelling, but like, yeah. Well, no, like again, it's a case by case it's a case-by-case situation. Like someone does something that's like, well, I guess my threshold for being offended by people's actions in the street is just quite high. So like, I'll just let a lot of shit. Like, if it's just like someone bumps into you or whatever, I'm just like, fucking, I'm not gonna lose my shit over someone like who's in a hurry bumping into me because he's not paying attention. And I'm not gonna fucking go off on one because then I'm just angry for the next half an hour, and then what's the fucking point in me?
See, when that happens to me, I'm angry when they don't reciprocate my invitation to fight. Because I'm just like, I don't respect you. It was like, you're arrogant, like, you think you've got this, and they're right, that they've got societal protection, that they can basically just get away with doing whatever they want. Because even though if he's a dick, and I call him something or I deck him one, I'm at fault. Which annoys me, that we can't just like have it out.
Like ice hockey.
Yeah, it's like that. Yeah, exactly. We need the enforcers to come on the scene.
Yeah. We just need a ref to jump in and go, right, go! Right, that's enough. It's off.
Peace off, Ghost. So,
shall I continue?
Yeah. What were that metric broken down into? There's two constituent parts.
Yeah, so I'm still on the agreeableness section. So the constituent parts are compassion and politeness. There's a couple of interesting paragraphs here about agreeableness in general, so I'll read those quickly.
How much do you think,
no, come on.
Empathy would feed into that, obviously, with compassion? That struck me there.
Empathy?
Because surely high empathy would be a trait of someone who is agreeable, right?
Maybe.
Well, yeah, I mean, because I guess if we define empathy as being able to put yourself in the position of somebody else, or being able to, place yourself in the mindset of someone else
and understand.
Yeah, well, I guess the agreeableness is, well, not necessarily, because I guess you could just generally be predisposed to presuppose that everyone you interact with is going to be upset by you saying what you think, rather than being sensitive to the actual mindset of people that you confront. Because I guess if you come across someone who's like, perhaps, like maybe if you're agreeable, well, it did say you can pick up on, which say compliant, nurturing, kind, able, trusting, and conciliatory.
I think they probably left out that word to not be loaded. So let's say if you're low agreeable, they're not going to say you have no empathy because that's quite loaded.
No, I'm not, because I think they're distinct concepts. But I imagine it would play into it for sure. I mean, maybe people who are high in agreeableness
are more likely to be empathetic.
Well, think they are.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's a real dangerous one.
Right, is to think they're empathetic because I don't know. Well, I guess that comes from that, like I was saying about resenting people for, like not being able to speak your mind or being walked over. You become frustrated.
Then they just fucking explode anyway, and it gets worse.
But no, I don't know. I imagine empathy would probably overlap with this. Let's see, where was I? People with moderately high levels of agreeableness, somewhat forgiving, accepting, flexible, gentle, and patient. They tend to feel pity for those who are excluded, punished, or defeated. They generally feel that people should work cooperatively and are somewhat sceptical of competition with its losers and winners. However, moderately agreeable people have to be careful not to be taken advantage of, particularly by disagreeable people, including those with criminal or predatory intent.
I have neither of those things. I just like to chuck that out there.
He says. They may also find it somewhat difficult to engage in arguments and may even avoid discussions with less agreeable people.
Well, you don't do that.
Well, no. Depends. Sometimes. They have to work at bargaining for themselves or at negotiating for more recognition or power. They may have somewhat lower salaries and earn less money in consequence. All of this can produce a tendency to resentment and hidden anger, particularly among those who are also high in neuroticism. Furthermore, because of their tendency to avoid or reduce conflict, moderately agreeable people can be tempted to sacrifice medium to long-term stability and function for the sake of short-term peace. This can mean that problems that should be solved in the present can accumulate counterproductively across time. And there's a point here about agreeableness's association with political leanings. So it says, agreeableness per se is not strongly associated with political liberalism or conservatism, but this is because the aspects of agreeableness predict such political belief in opposite ways and cancel each other out. Liberals are higher in aspect compassion and conservatives in aspect politeness. However, alliance with the category of belief that has come to be known as politically correct is strongly predicted by agreeableness, particularly compassion. What this appears to mean is that agreeable people strongly identify with those they deem oppressed, seeing them essentially as exploited infants, and demonize those they see as oppressors, seeing them as cruel, heartless predators. Which is interesting because I, as a younger, I was saying earlier, as a younger man, because I identified with being mixed race, and in being that oppressed within that oppressed group of people, and that was something I was like, I was raised to believe that. It wasn't something I just like stumbled across myself, but I latched onto it and was definitely a kind of essential part of how I saw myself as a person.
You were very aware of that
till I was in my mid-20s. Yeah, right. Well, exactly. So I was like, because of the way of that argument is, it was systemic based rather than individual based. So like the concern with racism was not with individual acts of racism, it's with like a structure of racism that is the entire society. So it was like not a good way of conceiving of the problem, because you wind up grouping people into the oppressed and the oppressors. So the black and minority, ethnic or BIPOC or whatever it is as the oppressed, and then white as the oppressor. But you've just engaged in identity prejudice when you make that conclusion, because you've just drawn an assumption based on people's membership to a particular group. So it's dysfunctional. But that does go, I think, a long way to explaining where we're at with a lot of our social conversations, because kids are encouraged to be empathetic and compassionate nowadays. And,
massively.
And as he's just said in the report here, like there's that tendency to fall in with political correctness ties in with that sort of level of agreeableness. So yeah, and because that's something that I've kind of actively tried to change about myself, not necessarily being less agreeable, but yeah, I don't know, it's like it was more out of realizing the logical fallacies in the systemic racism argument for me that was, I realized, because I was raised both on kind of like proto-critical race theory, which is what I've just described, and simultaneously on things like the kind of liberal approach to civil rights, the kind of Martin Luther King concept of character, not colour of skin. Everybody's a human being, like everyone is equal in their moral worth because of being a human. So I was raised on both of those things at the same time, and they're contradictory ideas. And I didn't realise that until I was like 25. And then it was like, then when I started thinking about it, I was like, wow, I can't do both of these at the same time. So I have to pick one. And I was like, well, this one's not going anywhere. This one seems pretty good. That one can go away. And that one is the critical race theory.
Yeah.
But
cognitive dissonance is very uncomfortable. Yeah. Really horrible, that. What would you say about what makes someone compassionate or in fact dispassionate?
Well, let me jump onto that straight into the next one. So
there we go.
My compassionate score was 42, so 42nd percentile. People who are typically compassionate people are reasonably interested in the problems of other people and other living things. They are somewhat concerned about helping other people avoid negative emotion, but are willing to stand their ground even when others get upset. They make time and do things for others, but balance that with fulfilling their own needs and interests. They have a soft side, but are not pushovers. Other people consider them reasonably sympathetic and nice, and will sometimes turn to them for a listening ear. They can be empathetic and caring. Here's the empathy. However, they are not primarily other-oriented, so they can negotiate effectively on their own behalf. This helps ensure that they get what they deserve and shields them from the development of resentment. Those who are liberal politically score somewhat higher in compassion than conservatives. Women are also higher in compassion than men. The mean percentile for women in a general population, women and men, is 61. For men, it's 39. So I'm just above the mean for males.
That's interesting. I'd have thought you'd scored higher on that.
Yeah, well, I was always kind of comfortable with the school because I have a kind of weird policy with my compassion, and it's like, because I do, if someone comes to me and asks me for help, I will help you, right? If it's a sincere request and I don't think it's a scam or
a mug off,
yeah, I'm being ripped off or whatever. I'm not that naive, but like I'm willing to help people up until the very point where they stop helping themselves. Because it's like, I'm willing to put effort into helping you with whatever your problem is, but as soon as you like stop, as soon as you start slowing this process down, or you start doing things that like I don't know, slow down the return on my investment, I guess, then I'm like, well, look, I'm not going to dump everything I have into your thing if you're not going to help yourself. So I thought that seems
yeah, no, that's
right.
perfect, because you can't be having black holes. Because you cannot save the black hole from itself. It's not possible. They will just try and suck you in.
Well, it's one of the things, because I used to be a lifeguard when I was a kid, and it's one of the things they teach you about like going to save people, right? Is that you don't you don't grab somebody, you don't go up to somebody if all they're going to do is grab onto you frantically and like, because they'll just pull you down and then you both drown, and then everyone's dead. Right, and you haven't achieved anything, right? And the world's worse than it would have been, right? And so one of the things you have to do is you have to splash people, right? Or you kick them, right? If they start grabbing onto you, you kick them away, and you splash them, and you tell them to calm the fuck down, so you can help them, right? Because like, you are now not helping yourself, and I cannot help you until you calm down and you stop doing the thing that's making your problem worse. Then I can help you. And that's kind of been my approach to, I guess, my compassion as and when I've chosen to have it.
Chosen to have it. That's interesting. But I think that's
not very well though.
yeah,
choosing it didn't do.
I think that's a very solid policy, actually.
It was alright. Certainly well.
It was alright.
Right.
Certainly well so far.
So I think I would sit on the lower side of this as well. I think the other one, politeness.
That's the next one, yeah.
Oh, okay. So that I'd probably be higher in that, but lower in compassion.
Yeah, I think you'd be pretty high on politeness. I think so.
Yeah. So that's where my disparity would be. We're saying I would, on the agreeableness as a total, somewhere close to the middle, but that's where the difference would lie.
So when you say you're low in compassion, I guess, well, I know you well enough to know, you understand stuff generally through analogies and scenarios, right? So, in fact, I'll go to a specific point. I don't know if you know what I'm going to say. When we were waiting to go into that restaurant for Sean's birthday, shout out to Sean, one of our mates, obviously, in Tring years ago. And there was this woman who was clearly, like, to use one of John's phrases that I love, not the full ticket. And she was like...
Just the stub.
Yeah. She'd been chucked away. Her horse wasn't a winner. And she was there clearly like distressed and all fucked up. And I was looking and he was looking at me going, don't do it, don't go over. Don't go over. I was like, oh, I'll just go and make sure. So I did, and it turns out she's someone who's like known to police, because we called the police, and she was like, my husband's hitting me and stuff, which if obviously true, fuck him up.
Yeah.
But as it turns out, she was just a bit of a serial chancer, Billy Bullshitter looking for a bit of attention. But what is curious in that scenario is who was correct in that. So with the information I had that I didn't know who she was, was I right to go over there, or was he right to like, nah, leave it?
Fucking leave it. Gut feeling.
I don't think there's a right and wrong.
No,
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah.
Well, no, I don't think there can be. You don't have enough information for you to. Either of you didn't have enough information to make a full
decision.
Assessment of what was going on. Yeah. You just reacted on gut instinct, and well, like you said, if she had happened to have actually sincerely been beaten, right, and stuff would have been going on, which very well could have been the case, Sean would have been mistaken to advise you not to go over and do something.
It wasn't Sean, it was him.
Oh, sorry.
Sean was away with the fucking fairies.
Oh,
he would know what was going on.
I missed that. I heard Sean at the beginning.
Oh, it's because it's his birthday.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Sorry. My bad. Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Well, it's like... Look, there's loads of examples are coming onto my head now. It's like there was a So there was a woman in Edinburgh when I first moved there, who I was walking down Princess Street, and there was a young woman, maybe like mid-20s, like clearly like dishevelled, not doing very well. Like she was sat up on some steps, and she sort of like kind of curled up a little bit with her head in her hands, and kind of like sobbing, kind of like just like continuously sobbing. And I walked past, and like you look, and you're like, oh, well that's not. I wonder what's wrong, kind of thing, you know. And loads of people are just walking past. And then I think I walked past once, went to do what I was doing, and then came back.
Thought about it for a bit.
And then she was still there. No, I went over to her and I said hello. I asked her what was wrong, and she said she'd just gotten off the phone. She's been trying to sort out some accommodation, and it's fallen through, or like, you know, shit like that. And I was just like, well, what do you need? Like if it's like something's, if you're short for like a bit of cash or whatever, like what is it that you need to like solve this problem? She was like a tenner or something, and I was like, give me 2 minutes. And I went and got a tenner out of my bank, and I gave her the tenner, right? And I was like, fine, whatever, nothing of it. Off she went. And then I've seen her do that like time and time again. I've walked past her in different spots, always sobbing, always crying.
There we go, I'll fucking have that tenner back.
No, excuse me. I don't know if you remember this. But
you did this last time. Well, no, but clearly she's hard up, and she's figured out a tactic, a strategy of acquiring money. You know, she's a woman, right? Because you see a man sobbing on a fucking step.
Yeah, what a cup.
You're just like, well, I'm going to leave you to it, mate. Right? Yeah. You're on your own. I'm afraid. But yeah, like sobbing on a stair, get up and sort your problem out. But you see a woman crying on the stairs, and not to be sexist, ladies, but you're like, oh, I want to help, right? Maybe that's my patriarchy talking.
Just programmed to it. Biologically, I would imagine, more so than societally.
Well, both. That's hard to say, but the like, yeah, like, one of the things I was, because my response was I was a little annoyed.
I was going to say, when you saw that, what was your feeling?
Well, I was I was like, I don't think it was annoyance didn't come first. I think it was like, oh.
Did you feel like a twat?
Not really.
No, you didn't feel like, oh, I've been fucking done.
No, it was a tenner.
No, but I would. I would feel like, yeah.
Would you say anything though?
Yeah, I'd be annoyed at myself.
I did think, oh, I've been had here. She's played on my emotions, and she's gotten the tenner out of me. No, I didn't resent her for it. Like, I wasn't like angry at her, because well, look, I've no idea what her situation is, right? She may legitimately just be homeless. And she does need that tenner every night to pay for a bed at a hostel, or
she's
pay
found
for
an
a
OP
bed.
strategy of getting
No, exactly. Yeah. And she's figured out, like, if I sit and cry, I'm like in my 20s, kind of, I don't know, like damselly enough to draw that kind of attention. Yeah. And that gets me my tenner, maybe more. I don't know whether she's spending it on fucking food, drugs, alcohol. I don't know, or if it is legitimately accommodation. Either way, there are a lot of homeless people in Edinburgh, and yeah, I don't know. I felt like I'd been had, but I wasn't like, I wasn't miffed.
Fair enough. I think I'd be like, well played. That's a good
touche.
I appreciate it.
All right, politeness.
Oh, fuck's sake.
My score was 89th percentile.
Oh shit, boy!
Very high,
yeah.
My mum did always say you were really polite.
Yeah, way too polite. Please say please and thank yous. Mum drilled that into me. She did.
Jesus!
Say it, please. She didn't hit me. I was
fucking hell.
There was a fly.
Yeah, I thought you were doing like Obama, like grab the sucker.
Cool.
Highly polite people tend to be deferential to authority and are generally obedient.
Behind you.
They are respectful and hate to appear or to be pushy. That is me.
That's correct.
They are uncomfortable challenging other people. Sometimes.
I'm just hearing terrible salesman.
Hey, I was an alright salesman. Actually, I was a salesman for a little while.
Were you?
Yeah, home insurance.
Do you want to do it again?
Yeah, with Jake.
Yeah, policy expert.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know I wasn't a good salesman. Like cold calling, I sucked at because it's just like when someone says no, I'm like, yeah, all right.
Well, that makes sense. How did I stay, sir?
Yeah, it's kind of like, well, can't really argue with that.
Well, no, because I guess for me, because like I always think about, well, if someone calls me up and was like, do you want something? And I say no, I expect that to be the end of the conversation.
Yes.
So like,
yeah.
I'm calling someone up and they're like, no, I'm like, all right, mate, have a good day.
So
And whenever I did the script that they expect you to do, it always made me feel shitty. I always felt
it is pushy and horrible.
Yeah, I always felt like, you know.
That's,
well, there's other ways of going about it, right? Because you can continue the conversation trying to sell something without being pushy. It's tricky because
it's more like, have you considered this, as opposed to go on.
Yeah. Go on, please.
Yeah. See that so that makes you bad at it for the opposite reasons that I'm not very good at it. In that I'm a very good second support player on it. But if I'm there and someone's like, no, I'm like, well, fuck you!
Why fucking not?
And I've got no recourse, because I'm not like, come on, mate, you fucking idiot, it's obviously good.
Highly polite people will try diligently to avoid conflict and have a more intense desire than average to steer clear of confrontations or fights. Those who are liberal politically score somewhat lower in politeness than conservatives. That's interesting.
That's very
isn't it?
interesting.
That is.
The opposite pattern is seen with compassion, as we saw. Women are higher in politeness than men. The mean percentile of women in a general population is 59. For men, it's 41. So I'm way above the mean for both sexes. Mm-hmm. That liberal, less polite than conservatives thing is fascinating.
I can see it though.
Yeah.
I imagine that woman at the I forgot if it was a pro or anti-Trump thing, but it's basically, you know, the quite famous picture of women being like,
Oh, the one screaming in the street.
Yeah, exactly that. Like that leapt to mind straight away. And I saw this the other night. I was at a political hustings, and it was there was a Green and a Lib Dem candidate there. The Conservative and Labour one didn't show up for various personal reasons, and the debate was very well natured. And all of a sudden, the like real far left people at the back just started fucking screaming and shrieking, and everyone's like, in I won't say who I spoke to them, but if someone who was involved in it, and I was like, this is why everyone fucking hates the left, and they were like, because like they immediately devolved that from polite adult discourse into emotional shrieking like babies. Ugh. So actually, the more I think about that point, the more it makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Well, going back to the point about compassion, right? The sensitivity to those who are excluded, the oppressed and the oppressors. I guess and especially if you're taking that kind of systemic attitude to it, then the reality that you find yourself in is one of like a constant state of oppression, and so. So if the question is, well, what are you going to do about that if that's what you believe?
It gives you inner justification.
It gives you a rationalization to be horrible to people, like genuinely to bully, to harass, to manipulate, to be deceitful, because
you're Luke Skywalker and they're the Empire.
Right? No, exactly. Because I'm pushing back against systemic patriarchy, racism, cis heteronormativity.
So whatever. I'm in the right by doing this.
Yes. Yeah. I am.
But I must be because I feel very strongly. Interesting.
Well, that argument's made a lot in the kind of post-colonial literature. People like Frantz Fanon literally argue that the oppressed cannot engage in violence or hate because they are the ones who have violence and hate done to them, and they are resisting against that state of violence and hate. And if they do so with violence and hate, it's not violence and hate. They are justified in doing so, and they are humanizing themselves and the oppressors by killing them.
I can think of a lot of headless French people who disagree with that quite strongly.
This dude was French. Well, Algerian, but...
Were you saying that's the same thing?
No? No, French-Algerian. It was because the French were colonising Algeria.
He knows. He was just being a dick. Drop that agreeableness score.
That's another point down.
So that's agreeableness closed off. Any closing comments on?
Yeah, fuck you.
Yeah, all right.
Had to do
Beat
it.
me. Fuck you too.
All right, conscientiousness.
Yeah, I really don't like Bono.
Moderately low.
Fuck you.
Sorry, I had to do it. Right. Yes, conscientiousness.
Yeah.
38th percentile for myself. Conscientiousness is a measure of obligation, attention to detail, hard work, persistence, cleanliness, efficiency, and adherence to rules. Yeah. John's very high.
Yeah.
John was like 95, I think.
Standards and processes.
105.
Conscientious people implement their plans and establish and maintain order. The two aspects of conscientiousness are industriousness and orderliness.
Oh, yes.
People moderately low in conscientiousness are not particularly dutiful. They are by no means sloggers. They will only work hard if pushed and don't mind wasting time. Oh my god, that's me. They are quite likely to procrastinate, particularly if they are also above average in neuroticism. If people with moderately low levels of conscientiousness commit to doing something, there is a good chance they will be late or delayed, even if there isn't much reason for it. They tend to find and deliver excuses for their failure under such circumstances. They are not markedly decisive, neat, organised, future-oriented, or reliable, and they find themselves easily distracted.
So basically, they're the worst.
People with moderate levels of conscientiousness are less likely to obtain higher grades in academic settings, particularly if they are also less intelligent, and generally require substantial supervision to stay on task. For this reason, they make less than optimal managers and administrators. They do not feel compelled to do things by the book, however. This can perhaps be an advantage if they are engaged in creative tasks where rules must be broken for advancement to take place. They are unlikely to make career accomplishment a primary goal, turning instead to a pursuit of safety and security, if high in neuroticism, creative accomplishment, if high in openness, and establishment of intimate relationships and friendships, if highly agreeable, or social success, excitement, and fun, if extroverted. People moderately low in conscientiousness tend to be relatively free of guilt, shame, self-disgust, and self-contempt. This is where it deviates from me. Other people, however, may react negatively to their tendency to slack off, particularly if those other people are disagreeable and conscientious. Sorry.
Sounds like our John, doesn't it?
Work ethic, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
To be fair, this is probably the most simple of the metrics.
Yeah.
Because it is quite cut and shut.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of demons between the lines here.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Do you get the work
you know if someone's conscientious because you go in their house and it's like a psychopath lives there.
Yeah.
There's no dust anywhere.
Yeah, it's quite easy to spot in certain aspects, yeah.
But also people who are very low in conscientiousness. Like there's certain people I'm thinking of who shall remain unnamed, but it's like they don't give a fuck about anyone's time but their own. So they're quite happy to have you waiting for them for hours and hours and end. Like, oh, well, you know, I was just fucking about. Well, why? Why were you fucking about? It's just, there's no way of winning that argument, I think. And isn't it our boy Jordan who says, I know I went all LA there. Jordan. LA, New York, and the other major city. There's only two in America
Jersey.
right here. It's a Jersey thing. Who's like, a huge disparity in conscientiousness is one of the worst things you can have in any relationship, and it will fuck it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've seen that to
100%,
like
because
really viscerally.
that's where the resentment would come hard.
Because this is
Someone
it, like
taking care of something and then the other person fucking it off completely.
But it's when there's an imbalance. Obviously, you can be like a bit off.
Yeah, 60-40.
You know, I've been with a couple of people who, you know, let's say the place ain't a shithole. There's stuff there because you've lived there or you just had dinner, and they can't do anything if there is a bit of dust or a bit of clothing out of place, and it's actually really oppressive and horrible to be around, in my opinion. Because number one, it's like, oh my god, like just calm down. Number two, for me, I always think, do you not have like a higher brain function that you're thinking of other than there's a bit of dust there? Like, come on.
I think with those people, they have to sort that because that's like a splinter in their mind.
Yeah.
That's just in the way, like a fog. And they can't function properly without first removing it. But yeah. So you would be lower on that metric.
I think I scored middling because I think I'm quite industrious but not orderly. So you know, I'm always I will never like shirk. I never bottle. I'll fucking do it. But my room is a shithole.
Yeah.
Like it is bad. But I quite like it like that. When people move my stuff, it annoys me because although it's air quotes a mess, I know where it is. So when it gets tidied away, I'm like, well, you can't fucking remember what it is now, and now I don't know because I can't find it. So it annoys me.
Yeah, because I think I sit somewhere close to the middle as well. I think I can flip either way, not really hard either way, but like, yeah, so down the middle, flip to like 60 or 40 either way at times.
I'd say you're reasonably orderly, actually.
Yeah, I've always thought he was very tidy.
Yeah.
Need I remind you of the
always
fucking
been
doily on the PS3?
Yeah,
this guy, when he first got his PS3 years ago...
Which was a dust magnet,
yeah,
I might add, by the way.
To stop dust getting on it, would put a doily like fucking Dobby on it. And he would kick off.
Doily?
And he backed me up, you admit it.
Yeah,
he had a doily and he would kick off whenever anything went near it.
I'm quite precious about
when we first became friends, I went in his room and I was like, what the fuck is that? The absolute old lady. like a granny was playing FIFA 2008.
Yeah.
But to be fair, you get wound up when you come in, like, into my house and you're like, how the fuck is all that there?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff around.
So
yeah, like I'm not at the level of John, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm like tidy enough. Like I don't.
Everyone thinks they're tidy enough.
I don't mind living in a bit of filth. Like I can. It does. I go through phases. Like I'll clean, and then it'll be a bit messy for a little while. And I'll clean a little bit. It'll be a bit messy for a little while, and then I get to a point where I'm like, this is starting to make me feel ill, and so I'm gonna clean everything. Like I'll have a proper clean, and then I'm like, this is nice, and then gradually accrue. Crap and whatever, or plates and rubbish on the floor.
See, I have never done a clean without
I've never done a clean
being dragged to the gallows to do it. Because it makes me feel like I'm kind of oppressed cuck if I have to clean. It's like a dog wearing the what do you call it?
Oh yeah,
the code of shame.
Thing. Yeah, code. Yeah.
But then again, I go so shout out to Ollie here. Got a lot of people. His house. By the way, Ollie makes a lot of money. He's got a really nice place. He finishes a drink, like a tinny, just dashes it on the floor. Just fucking chucks it. And you walk in and there's like 1 million boxes of brand new expensive trainers and he's just like trashed the place.
That's weird.
We're 32, by the way. We're not students. Well,
Matt.
You recently are no longer a student.
Yeah, I've just finished.
He's just severed the umbilical cord.
Graduate in 2 weeks.
Yay.
Nice.
Scored a 2-1, I found out yesterday.
Nice.
Score. Yeah.
That's only the 3 points matter.
Exactly. The last bit on conscientiousness. Individuals who are moderately low in conscientiousness are not particularly concerned by failure. They are not judgmental to themselves or others and tend towards situational explanations for disappointment, frustration or lack of success. So it's everyone else's fault.
Oh, that would actually be the opposite of me in every bit of those then. Because failure is horrible and very loaded to me and I'm always like, I'm a gun! Beep!
They can handle periods of inactivity and unemployment with relative ease. I think that's fairly true of myself. They tend to downplay the relationship between hard work, diligence and success, believing that chance factors and luck in life play a determining role. They live in large part for leisure and very much look forward to time off. I love time off. I love it so much, I like not to work.
See, I really, really dislike days where there's nothing on. So if there's nothing happening, and there's no, I don't mean no social plans or anything. Because, in my tyranny, I always make our social plans into, right, here's a side hustle. I'll do my gym in the morning, and then I'll just sit there miserable and bored and bouncing off the walls.
You need something to do.
Maybe I'm higher conscientiousness than I gave myself credit for.
They can be good at relaxing and living in the moment, particularly when low in neuroticism. They are less concerned than average with cleaning, moral purity and achievement. It's more fun to be at the beach or at a party with a person with a person moderately low in conscientiousness, but you might not want to invite them over on moving day. People moderately low in conscientiousness are more likely to be political liberals rather than conservatives. This is particularly true if they're also high in openness. And women are very slightly more conscientious than men. The mean percentile for women in the general population is 51, and for men is 49.
I would say that's nearest makes no difference then.
Industriousness. Mine is 67th percentile. Moderately industrious people are reasonably likely to be successful in school and in administrative and managerial positions, particularly if they are intelligent. They don't live to work, however, and do not always have to be doing something useful. They are generally quite dutiful, however, and tend not to put things off or mess them up. They also tend to finish what they start, pretty much on schedule. Moderately industrious people have some genuine interest in considering how to accomplish more or less in time with fewer resources and can focus consistently on the task at hand. Excuse me. Moderately industrious people are quite likely to judge shirkers or people who are incompetent in a negative manner. They tend to believe that people fail because they don't apply themselves or work hard enough. They are definitely capable of feeling a sense of personal failure and guilt if they do not live up to their duties. However, because they usually stay on schedule and accept responsibility, they generally avoid experiencing
It
actual
doesn't happen
guilt.
because they normally just get it done.
Right. Those who are liberal and those who are
they're
conservative
right,
appear equally industrious, and men are slightly more industrious than women.
Yeah, I'd say that
that
checks out because I'm comparing like me and John. Yeah, is that we both really, really, really disdain incompetence and people like fucking stuff off. Like really hate it. We have no sympathy for it whatsoever. Like if you say you're going to be somewhere, you better be there, unless obviously something within the bounds of reason has gone tits up.
Fair enough.
You know, because it's like they don't respect your time. And they're taking it for granted because you're a conscientious, dutiful person. It's like, he'll fucking be there, it don't matter. Right. Winds me up, man. For those of you who can't see, which is all of you, just did a fake slap in the air to illustrate my point.
And he's wearing two very big rings. Signet rings, by the looks of it.
Just decorative, man. It's just decorative.
Fair enough.
That goes on to the back to the agreeable trait.
But no, I think this maps for me pretty accurate. I mean, like my time at uni, like I can sit down, I can focus on an essay, or I can do a presentation.
You've done a lot of writing.
Yeah, shit ton of writing.
Read a lot of books as well, and that actually does count quite significantly towards this.
Yeah. Well, yeah, reading's difficult for me. I've always been a slow reader. Mainly because I just never bothered when I was at school. I was just like, I just can't be. I don't want to do this. I was always just laid back, and I just want to be outside playing. I didn't want to be doing class or maths or English or whatever.
Ah, interesting.
And then even at secondary school, I was just having the jolly about. I was just I only read things if they really interested me. Like I read Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Some stuff to do with science I quite enjoyed, but other than that, if it didn't grab my interest, I wasn't reading it. And then when I left school, I didn't read anything for years. I had audiobooks, I listened to a couple, but I very rarely read anything. And then when I went to college before I went to uni, and then went to uni, reading was difficult because reading was difficult when I had this weird brain epiphany when I was like 25. I don't know if I've told you about this or not. I was at my dad's house. I was playing video games. I had my feet up on the wall. And this voice in my head that was just me or my mind or something went, you need to start using me or I'm going to stop working properly. And I was like, okay, that seems like something I shouldn't ignore.
Yeah, it wasn't your knob, was it?
Huh? No, it wasn't.
Wait! It's time.
I'll stop working.
Oh, always a penis joke in there somewhere.
Lock the door and get the tissues out.
You need to start using me or I'm going to start working properly.
So that was your conscience, essentially.
Well, something like that, or just my mind. I was also, I think that was kind of around the time I was like training and to be a PT. So I think maybe the idea of like atrophy I was applying to my cognitive.
You were good at that as well.
But no, so but one of the things after having that weird moment, I was like, well, I don't really know what to do about that, and so I was like, well, you could read something. I was like, I haven't read anything in many years, and the things I was interested in, I was just watching a lot of astrophysics stuff on Netflix, like Neil deGrasse Tyson's Cosmos or whatnot. And he just published a book called Astrophysics for People in a Hurry, like a little book of prose of like short essays on like astronomical
phenomena.
Thank you. And I started reading through that, but it was like one of the things I found, even though I was interested in it, is that I could only read like for like 5 minutes, and I just stopped. I'd stop paying attention. My mind would just fuck off, and even if I was interested, it was just like. So it took me a good couple of years to get used to reading. I mean, even now, because I think my mind's kind of always racing. Like I read something, and then it impacts me, and my mind just goes off on one. So even now, if I'm
as in on the topic.
Yeah. So like, sometimes tangentially.
I start thinking about other shit.
Yeah.
I find it very, very difficult
to
read.
That's
unrelated.
Take it in.
You're bored or not engaging with it, whereas you're very engaged with it, so much so that you're formulating your own conclusions and speculations about it.
Something like that.
Interesting.
Or making associations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how easy did you both find school? Because it's a long time for me. You know what my fucking memory's like. I can't remember.
We're the same age. Mate.
I know, but I can't remember that far back. I genuinely don't remember. I remember you more because we spoke every night. But I don't think you and I ever, Matt, were in the same class, to my knowledge. I'm pretty sure we weren't. So, you always struck me as someone who was clever, but I never saw you do shit basically because we just weren't there.
Yeah, everyone says that. And I never did anything. I have no idea why everyone was basing that on. I was alright. I think for me it was just a case of you had to just catch me in the right fucking mood. Like if I didn't want to, I wouldn't. Remember when we used to do cross country at Brookney? At fucking primary school. No, I'd just walk.
Yeah, just completely fucking off. Yeah.
They're like, you gonna run, Matt? I'm like, no.
Really, no.
What's the point?
Yeah, well, you're gonna make me. No, you're not gonna make me. Oh, we're gonna walk. I'll see you at the end,
you
mate.
take like
he's really agreeable.
Cuts across the field.
Yeah,
and stuff like
that. I'll just walk. I'm fucking screw you cross country. That's the disagreeable. That was me being a little disagreeable as a little youngster.
So my classic technique in PE. Everyone remembers the bleep test, right?
Oh yeah.
So.
Ooh yeah.
You remember I was quite a lot more portly as a child and a teenager. So when the bleep test came on, I'd make sure specifically there were 2 kids who I knew were seen as the fat kids. So I beat them by 1 and then duck out. Everyone's like, right, I'm not a fat kid, but that's it.
Oh, minimal level of success. I'm out. That's me done.
But did you find school frustrating?
Not frustrating. Difficult in a way of like, I used to look around and wonder how people found it easy. Certain people. Someone like, you remember Angie? She always used to find stuff like really easy. I remember particularly.
She was a smart girl. I remember Angie.
And I used to think like, how do people like just understand it so quickly and can like write essays? Basically, that's what I struggle with the most.
Oh yeah.
Like,
and like interpreting.
I knew stuff.
Work.
Yeah, but then I just couldn't like form it into actual like proper essays and stuff.
Well, I remember reading things like Shakespeare. And then they'd be like, "Oh, and this bit means this." I'm like, "How the fuck did you get what? Yeah. What do you want? I'm not seeing what you're saying. These words on the page, mate." And I don't know how much of that was due to just some kind of like weird cognitive block. Because I had this with maths. I used to have this with maths a lot. Like someone was like, "Here's do your times table or whatever." My brain would just go, "See, Matt, I'm off. You're on your own." And even like the simplest stuff, and I would just be like, and nothing would it wouldn't happen.
I think that's basically a kind of a thing that I do in some realms. As you go, well, that's not my game to do, so I'm not going to put any attention to it.
Right, yeah,
just clocking out.
Yeah, which I get. So if I know I ain't going to get it,
I actually found maths
I'm not doing it.
Relatively better than others. I didn't enjoy it, but I knew that I was better at it than others.
You were in the top set. I remember because without being a dick, you were sat next to me, so I knew exactly where you were.
Yeah.
At that time, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think.
But I never I never thought I was really good at it. I just knew that I got it. I just looked around and realised I got it more than others, comparatively to other subjects, basically.
Yeah. So I think what you two were talking about earlier there in terms of how do people just get it? As one of the people who just got it, I think that comes down to like an innate conceptual understanding of things. Because you know what I'm like with details and facts and stats and shit. But I'll get the crux of something and what it means quick. So like in the English lit exams, I got an A. I think I got 100% in one test. Didn't read the book. And I was a twat not doing that, by the way. This ain't me bragging, but it's just because I understood what the point was, and basically I could shithouse what they wanted me to write. Yeah. I just write that.
See, I'd never get anywhere close to that.
Probably more about testing at schools.
Yeah, that's dumb. It doesn't measure intelligence. It measures how much of a shit you are.
Right. Well, we were talking about gaming systems earlier. It's like they've got a mechanism for measuring something, which then they associate with a score. And if you're a smart enough kid, you can figure out what the pattern is, what they're asking of you, like you just said, and then deliver it without actually engaging with
and just use big words.
Which is,
I knew how to spell intrinsically, so therefore I was inherently better off. And also I did a lot of throwing shit at the wall. So I remember you commenting after we got one exam, you were like, how the fuck, because I wrote 13 pages in one exam, it's like
just a load of shit.
Most of it was bollocks, but as long as basic game and system, as long as the key points are in there, it doesn't matter how much waffle's there, as long as the sad bored bastard getting paid 50p to my hero paper site. I hope this kid dies. Oh yeah, he's got that point. Like, you've basically got it. But I think that's down to conceptual understanding, because remember you spoke about Angie. She was a big old artist, wasn't she?
She was.
So those kind of creative people normally have good conceptual understanding. Therefore, it's about getting the point and kind of like shit house.
See, that's hit it right on it. I think that I never got the point. I couldn't be further away from that. I think at that point in school, I didn't understand the point.
Yeah, you weren't good at it. Then you have got actually really quite good at it. I say later life. We're only in our fucking early 30s. So we're
after like mid-20s or so.
Well, again, I think schools do a pretty bad job of getting across to you the importance of trying to develop these skills. They just say that you have to do them because life and you're here and you have to go to school.
But this is a problem though, because they don't tell you to any way to develop your understanding of concepts. They just go, well, read it again and work hard. It doesn't matter.
Work it out.
Like if I extrapolate something that is above my level, like the stuff we're talking about would have been to like one of the dumber kids. Sorry. No matter how many times I read a treatise on like cold fusion, I ain't gonna get it.
Yeah,
it's not happening.
So I have a counter example for this. It's one of the things we were told when we were doing logic at university, because it is kind of like conceptually quite complex. And one of the pieces of advice that we were given was just sit with it, right? So like if you don't get it, right, it's because there's like inferences and axioms, assumptions, and steps.
But when you say logic, do you mean that is a subject, or do you mean logic in the way that I think?
As in the subject of logic.
Okay,
So like taking English language sentences and translating them into a formulated language that has a series of inference rules, and then you can derive, or you can work out whether or not a claim is valid or invalid. If like an argument logically follows from one proposition to another.
So you're boiling it down to its constituent parts basically, and seeing if they're bollocks or not. Okay.
Yeah. But when we were learning that, because one of the pieces of advice we were given was if you don't get it, sit with it, just stare at it, keep staring at it, and keep trying to do the exercises and keep working with it, and just slowly, because you're kind of like practicing. I don't know, kind of like clawing your way through a kind of fog.
And did that work?
I can't see how that would help myself.
No, fair enough. It sounds counterintuitive, but it did. It was one of those things you have to kind of.
There's no new information for me. I can't see that.
Well, no, because it's something like a kind of like a smoky landscape that's like in front of you, and it's not obvious, and you kind of have to feel your way through it and become familiar with it.
I know what you're saying.
And it's I remember feeling exactly what you're feeling when I was in my tutorial, and he said that when I said, I'm really struggling here.
Yeah.
I don't understand, you're talking a lot, you're drawing a lot of stuff, a lot of symbols, and you're talking about like these connections, and I'm not seeing the connections. And he was like, you just have to sit with it. And I think the just sitting with it part is, you're not just sitting with it, you're sitting with yourself in that weird, uncomfortable, I don't know what's going on here, little freaky panic thing that's going on inside your head when something isn't obvious, and you're like, everyone else around me seems to get it.
That is what I got every time I read a question on a paper, on an exam paper, and then I looked around and saw everyone immediately writing, and I went, what the fuck? No, it's not anywhere of a joke.
No. You're describing school for me. That's what maths classes, English classes.
And then I'd be like in my own head going, what the fuck are they writing? Why can't I think of something to write? How the fuck do I start this?
Right. But this is the point. This is what I think the sitting with it is, because that line of reasoning is unhelpful.
I'd have to read the question 5 times.
Yeah. Well, no, but I think you have to read the question however many times you have to read the question. Right. That's like some people can read it and go, right, yep, I've got it. Here's what I have to do. Yeah. And other people have to. No, but I mean, like when you're studying philosophy, one of the things they tell you early doors is you should be reading things 6 times.
Oh, absolutely. Fuck that.
Right? Like, you should be...
I understand why they say that for stuff like that, because there's a lot of between the lines shit in philosophy, right? Inherently, that is like part of it.
It's like you're having to...
But for me, it was literally, I was distracted. Reading the question, I'd get halfway through it. And I realise this now, like after, but at the time, I didn't realise what was happening, but I was distracted.
Right.
And I was thinking about other shit all the time.
Yeah.
And I couldn't, focus. I could not focus on
the question.
What I'm doing.
Yeah.
And then I kept looking around. And then I literally was not even there.
Very similar.
Yeah.
Very similar.
Like, I'd read the question and go, I don't know what that said.
Yeah.
And then I'd look around going, oh shit.
And then
they're right, shit, what do I write? I don't know what to write. I'll read it again. Nope, still don't know what to write.
Yeah.
That's actually really interesting internal monologue.
That's exactly how it went.
Yeah.
That's it. Do you know what's really interesting? Yeah. It's that kind of type of, I don't get this, what the hell are they doing? Panic is exactly what I get in like really emotional atmospheres when everyone's kind of like doing a vibe or a small talk. I'm there panicking like, oh fuck, I've got nothing to say here, I've got nothing to add. What the hell kind of level is everyone else on? That's interesting. Because that not really relevant to be fair, but that just struck me as, oh fuck, I recognise that feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think we all have those moments or environments where we're more comfortable and those that were less comfortable.
Yeah, hate exams. Yeah,
exams.
Looking back, I thought everyone didn't like them, and it seemed that way. But I think I really did like them.
I didn't like them the most.
It does seem that way.
It's like there was being on the spot.
Yes,
it's a shit or bust moment.
Yes, I really didn't like that.
But so that was ideal for me because I couldn't be asked to do the grinding of the coursework because I already understand it. I can't be asked to write 8,000 fucking words on this. But I can just like have one moment where I get to the crease, hit a 6 and go cheers. And that's it.
Yeah.
Ready for orderliness?
Yes. That was a long...
Hang on, let me just pick my coat up.
Nice.
Ha
16th percentile. Orderliness.
Oh god, your flat must be a shitter.
People low in orderliness are not disturbed, upset or disgusted by mess, disorder and chaos. They simply don't notice such things, or if they do, they don't care. They see the world in shades of grey, not in black and white, and are very non-judgmental and devil-may-care in their attitude toward themselves and others. They don't use schedules, lists or routines, and even if they plan, rarely implement those plans. That's uncanny. Preferring to take things as they come and let chance determine the outcome. They are not oriented toward detail and do not abide by rules or procedures. People who are low in orderliness don't care for routine and predictability. Their schedules are loose, their time unscheduled, and disruption doesn't bother them. They require constant reminder and supervision to maintain attention and focus, and are too easily distracted. They can, however, tolerate the mess, disruption, and intervening periods of chaos that may accompany creative endeavour. Those who are low in orderliness are much less likely to be political conservatives. Orderliness is the second best predictor of conservatism after openness.
Translation: you have ADHD.
Women are more orderly than men. That makes sense.
Yep.
The mean percentile for women than the general population is 54.5, for men 45.5. This may account for some of the trouble in relation to housework between men and women. Since women are on average more orderly, household disorder will trigger disgust and discomfort in them faster. We were talking about this earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. Instantly.
Yeah, this may happen with sufficient frequency so that they end up doing a disproportionate share of such work, even though if they waited a bit longer, their less orderly partners, often men, might end up equally troubled and motivated to fix the problem. Orderly people are more likely to have items such as events, calendars, drawer organisers, laundry baskets. I have a laundry basket. Irons.
That's one.
One of the
a list of 50 things, and you went, "I've got one of them." That's why you jumped at it, because you know. That's all
the floor.
Don't have any others. So.
That was nice once.
The drawer organisers. What is a drawer organiser?
I agreed one time.
Something that losers have.
And ironing boards in their immediate environments.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know. My mum has one. I never had one.
I don't actually have one.
Who needs one?
But you actually, you don't need it. As long as you get it out quick.
Not a virgin.
To be fair, this is
shake
pretty
it.
spot on. I mean, I just hang my shirts up and they sort themselves out.
Gravity.
Exactly. Right. Work smart, not hard.
Exactly. Boom.
I don't use schedules. I write lists.
Mm-hmm.
Every now and again.
Yeah.
I have all of these things. Shout out. Business partner Matt Small. He is my orderliness.
He is my orderliness.
I've outsourced my weaknesses.
I used to have like a to-do list, I think, for the first 2 years over the last 4. Just for like reading books and stuff, and then I just stopped.
Just don't do
Third
it,
and
yeah.
fourth year, I was just... which probably did me a disservice, actually.
Man, it took you 4 years to fuck it off. That's actually quite impressive.
Well, no, 2 years.
Still, anything more than like a week is not bad.
Yeah.
I think you can get into a habit if you force it for a while.
Can you, just go through the first little boop you read that again? Because I found that was... I definitely know I'm not orderly.
Sure.
But I didn't relate.
There's a couple of other things, yeah.
So the first section about orderliness, yeah.
I think that can be explained by... I have quite an orderly mind, like quite rigid in how I think.
It was, some of the points like not bothered by something about being fucked off, or time, or plans being
disrupted.
Yes,
I'm
stuff
a
like
theory.
I'll read the first two
Yeah.
People low in orderliness are not disturbed, upset, or disgusted by mass disorder and chaos. They simply don't notice such things, or if they do, they don't care. They see the world in shades of grey, not in black and white, and are very non-judgmental and devil-may-care in their attitudes towards themselves and others.
Not at all.
They don't use schedules, lists, or routines, and even if they plan, rarely implement those plans, preferring to take things as they come and let chance determine the outcome. They are not oriented toward detail and do not abide by rules or procedures.
I'd say about half of them.
People who are low in orderliness don't care for routine and predictability. Their schedules are loose and their time unscheduled, and disruption doesn't bother them. They require constant reminder and supervision to maintain attention and focus, and are too easily distracted. They can, however, tolerate the mess, disruption, and intervening periods of chaos that may accompany creative endeavours.
50-50, I reckon, for me. Because you see me subtly lose my shit when people are late, or when plans change. So let's say
how do you subtly lose your shit?
Because I'm losing it inside. But
to me, but then when he gets there, he won't say.
So what you'll see is just like a... Whereas inside I'm like, I'm going to fucking murder your whole bloodline. I hate it.
Yeah.
Even so we were driving back from somewhere today, and it was just like, oh, can we just stop off here? Can we just stop off here? And I was like...
Really no.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Yeah. And I did to maintain the peace of it, but I was just thinking, oh my god, because I'm not being funny, because I knew I had to come here, and we were miles away, and I had to go back at traffic time into a traffic heavy town.
Yeah.
And I was like, the more basically you put me on a tangent, the later I'm going to be, and the more pissed off I'm going to get later. So I'm just like, ugh.
Can I have a bit of your Coke?
Yeah, of course, mate. Yeah.
Cheers, mate.
That's Coca-Cola for our listeners.
How judgmental would you say you are?
Judgmental?
Yeah.
I'll go for a little bang of squoosh. You don't strike me as externally judgmental.
No.
Maybe you think everyone's kind
I
of...
just wondered what you thought your...
No, I mean,
Or how...
I can be judgmental. I am. I need to have reasons, I guess. I mean, that's kind of trivial.
No, it's not, because I would say I'm very judgmental, and I know that, like, and I don't need reasons.
Right. Just kind of on its face.
Yes.
Kind of just,
Yeah.
No, I can do. I guess I catch myself sometimes. Like, I mean, especially with what I've been doing. Like, I've been quite critical of university faculty, policy, some academics, administrators. I often find myself being quite
scathing.
Well, yeah. Like I'm sat here, like being like, I can't figure out if you're incompetent and an idiot or malicious. Like either you're like, you know, with regards to, like, I don't know, say the radicalization of the politicization of research and education, which is one thing I've been paying attention to. I'm reading like a policy document where someone's making frequent use of concepts and language and theoretical framings from a radical political tradition within like a conversation about applying it to the curriculum design for an entire university. And I'm like, do you know that you're deploying language from this tradition, or are you an idiot? Like, are you just a busybody? Are you just like Job's body or whatever it is? Thank you. Mixing metaphors. Or like, are you aware of the tradition that you're using the language of? Are you okay with it? And are you implementing it intentionally? And are you being just like, when I ask you about it and you say no, are you lying to me, or are you an idiot? Right? I'm kind of like, I'm not. If I'm going to make a judgment, I would like to be confident in my, like, what? Because going back to what we were talking about in the previous recording about what we're averse to or what we're drawn to, one of the things that terrifies me doing what I do, when I send an email or I write a blog post or I do a podcast and I make a claim, or I one of the things that terrifies me is being wrong. I'm like, I don't like, especially if I'm making accusations. If I'm like, I think you are being corrupt, or I think you are being incompetent, or I think you are being underhanded or deceitful, I'm like, especially those kinds of claims. I don't like, the last thing I'm always pretty open. I always say, oh, look, I may be making some mistakes here, and if I am, by all means, tell me that I'm getting this wrong and point out what the mistake I'm making. But yeah, I'm pretty judgmental. I just need to have I need to make sure I have the reasons, or that I'm right. I'm not wrong when I'm doing it, because I don't like. Because the last thing I want to do is, accuse someone of being a liar.
I think that's part of it, though. The fact that you are saying you need justification for it, or like reason, that brings your score down inherently. Right. Whereas someone like maybe myself doesn't think about the need for justification. I would just think it or say it anyway.
Yeah, you just like immediately hate the person. Yeah,
and don't need and that decision's been made.
That seems a little backwards, because that would increase your orderliness score.
No, not orderly. I was just hitting on the
talking about judgmental.
Oh, I
side.
Sorry.
Yeah.
No, but then again, in the same vein, I am also not that judgmental, because like we were talking earlier about, like, if someone bumps into you or someone makes a mistake or someone fucks up, I don't jump to, you're a useless piece of shit.
Yeah. No, I don't think you are. I wasn't saying I thought you were. Yeah, I think you are.
I'm like, alright, whatever, man. No harm, no foul. Like, fucking, like, if you didn't hurt me,
That's what I'm saying. I think you would sit on the lower side of judgmental, because of the reasons you were just outlining, and that as well.
Well, again, I also think it's changed with age a little bit. I was way more judgmental in my 20s. Way more.
So is everyone, though.
I know. But I think also, I think as one of the... If I've learned anything over the last 5 or 7 years, is that I can be wrong. And so I'm, like, very cognizant of the fact that I'm more than likely making many mistakes about the things that I think, and that's being human, right?
Yeah.
We're imperfect.
Yeah.
We've got flawed and limited sensory apparatus, limited conceptual faculties, and we're doing the best that we can to figure out what the hell's going on around you. And you're going to be making assessments about what's going on, and you're probably going to make some mistakes. But because there's nothing worse than, I'll tell you what. I'll give you an example. In my first year, I got marked down for an essay that I wrote, and I sent an email to the course organizer, basically just accusing them of marking me down for something, right? And then I got a reply that pointed out that I'd misunderstood what a word meant in a paragraph that I had then, because if I misunderstood the meaning of a word in a paragraph, which changed the meaning of the paragraph, and I based my argument on the meaning of a paragraph that I thought was there but was actually mistaken. And then he pointed that out to me, and I was like, "Oh, fuck! No! Oh my god!" Yeah, right, exactly. And I was like, I had to apologise, and like, you have to fucking like, oh, you're an idiot! What a fucking dickhead! You jumped on it, and you're like.
But how loaded is that to you when you're wrong, or you think you've been thick or incompetent or something? Is that like a soul crusher?
No, it's not intolerable. It's just it's never fun being like, you know. Well, I don't know, because I guess like scientifically minded people love being wrong. Like that's kind of their whole thing.
I find it not unenjoyable to be wrong.
Right.
Because basically, I don't care what the answer is as long as we arrive at the correct answer.
Right.
So if someone is like, you're wrong for this reason, I'm like, oh yeah, shit, nice. Anyway, next one.
No, fair enough. Yeah, well, you know, it's like you stick your, like you commit yourself to something, you stick your flag in the sand or whatever, and then it turns out it was a stupid place to put your flag or whatever, and then you're like, oh, fucking dickhead.
Do you know that Bertrand Russell quote? Someone said to him, would you die for what you believe? And he said, no, I might be wrong.
Yeah.
That's how you got to go with that kind of shit, I think.
Yeah, fair enough. Extroversion.
Hooray! Bum 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 bum. Man, I think mine was like 85 or 90.
Turn that light out.
Mr. Potter.
Moderately high, 75th percentile for extroversion.
That's pretty high.
Since extroversion and introversion...
Don't pretend you're like 12 on it.
I didn't say
fucking
anything.
Morrissey over here.
I didn't say anything. Yes.
No loose wire jokes.
Since extroversion and introversion are poles that denote the ends of the spectrum for this trait, you can also think of yourself as being moderately low in introversion. Thanks.
Yeah.
People with moderately high levels of extroversion are quite enthusiastic, talkative, assertive in social situations, and gregarious. They are often energized by social contact and crave it. They typically like to plan parties, tell jokes, make people laugh, and participate in community activities. This is one that deviates in, like, again, 50-50 kind of thing. Some of these points are and some of these points aren't for me. They are somewhat more likely to have positive memories of the past. Above average levels of current self-esteem, particularly if they are low in neuroticism, and to feel optimism about the future. Yeah, it comes and goes. People who are moderately extroverted don't keep things to themselves, tending instead to share what they are thinking with everyone. They are self-disclosing, particularly if also high in neuroticism, and they warm fairly rapidly. Don't get your dick out.
Again.
Yeah, again. And then, use me or I'm going to stop working.
Can anyone drink this boil?
And they can warm fairly rapidly to other people. They are among the first to speak in meetings and can be captivating and convincing. They are likely to be among the first to act in an ambiguous situation. People who are moderately high in extroversion make more enthusiastic employees and tend to be well suited to jobs involving sales, persuasion, working in groups, and public speaking. They are somewhat less suited to occupations that require a lot of isolated work, such as computer programming or accounting. People moderately high in extroversion have a tendency to be impulsive, particularly when it comes to having fun in social situations. They're somewhat more likely to sacrifice the future to the present when something social or group-oriented beckons. It can be difficult for them to be alone than to study and work. They can find themselves distracted by opportunities to chat, joke, and socialise. school, basically. This is particularly the case if they are also low in conscientiousness. When individuals are extroverted and conscientious, they are more productive than if they are introverted and conscientious. However, when they are introverted and unconscientious, they are more productive than they are when they are extroverted and unconscientious.
That makes sense.
Yeah, extroversion is a weird one because it was something because like at school I used to kind of just flip around and just talk to different groups of people, but then I've always kind of had this. I don't mind being on my own. Like like big groups, nights out. I used to find those quite uncomfortable to begin with, and I wouldn't mind taking myself away from them or just going off for a walk on my own. And it was something I intentionally had to work on when I was like 25, because I think working for that insurance company, I was like, well, pretty unhappy, pretty angry. I've been having some issues with anxiety and things like that, and was increasingly like I wasn't interested in making friends with new people. I was like, well, I have friends, I don't need new ones. Go away. And yeah, it's like when I decided to take a career break and go to Asia, one of the things I was explicitly thinking about doing, like the reasons for doing that, was just plopping myself in an unfamiliar environment and having to make friends with people, because I don't know, not to like I have people in my life who are alone, and I guess I was becoming increasingly aware that I didn't want to wind up like that. I didn't want to like grow up and be in my 50s or whatever and be alone and not have people around me. Not that was likely to be the case. I have an excellent group of friends, apart from you two.
Yeah, we're all right.
So yeah, it's weird. Like I was surprised when it was so high. What do you think? Was that?
I wasn't.
No.
You've always been a. Maybe social butterfly is wrong because that suggests that you're like gobby.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're very.
Yeah, I'd say
open and talkative. You normally share with a glass unless it's a bit.
Yeah, you're very happy to
inappropriately
talk,
deep rather for the situation.
Just love hearing my own voice, mate.
Yeah.
So no, I said that checks out.
Yeah.
Pretty well. I would have you. When we were first doing our personality typing, we both had you very comfortably as an extrovert.
Mm-hmm.
When we were kind of testing the metrics against what we, air quotes, knew about people.
Yeah, and the general populace.
So interesting how you perceive yourself.
Yeah.
And how you're perceived.
I think maybe because you see yourself as quite like internally analytical as well. Like maybe that comes into it.
Because he is.
Like, do you think? Yeah. Well, yeah.
Maybe but that, as in, he thought that was
the majority of the extroversion or the extroversion level.
Well, you generally don't see the thing you're doing most of because it's so natural. So you kind of discount it because it's in your blind spot. So you wouldn't have.
Yeah.
No, like, oh, I'm doing this because you're not doing this. Right, it just is.
But it goes deeper than just like how much you talk, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So.
Because I thought I was an introvert. Like I thought I was introverted years ago. Like, couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah, things like I say that about myself, but then it's like me and Aaron Champion used to put on like Monty Python shows. Like we used to rehearse and then stand up at front of assembly and do put on the Dead Parrot sketch or something. Or
there you go.
We did the argument sketch once. That was good.
You must have hated that.
No, it wasn't.
And why am I nodding? I was nodding. Goddamn audio medium. What would you put your extroversion at, Jason?
If I had to guess, probably something like 40.
That's exactly what I had in mind. Because it's nothing to like write home about.
No, I'm not like overly extroverted. I usually need prompting most of the time for stuff. I'm not a conversation starter.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I don't lead the line in conversation.
All right.
But like, I can be like fairly playful and I do enjoy like general engagement.
Yeah.
But I can also be fine on my own for periods.
Do you find that it like drains you after a while, like being social.
Yeah, it definitely can do. Yeah,
Like,
there's times which I do think like, oh no, I just want to get away, or
everyone needs to fuck off.
Yeah. Like long periods of like intense conversation like this can like I think over time can become quite draining. Like I think every now and again, like if I'm set up for it, it's fine, like because it's more of a novelty, so I'm good for it.
And you're ready, like you.
Yeah, but then
weren't dropped into it.
Yeah. But I do find myself sometimes. It gets to a point and I'm like, I think I'm done now.
Yeah.
And I have to like either force myself or really concentrate and try and like push myself back in, like from outside to continue. Whereas probably you two are more thriving on that and can continue doing so for longer and longer periods than myself.
Yeah, that's right.
I think so.
I think it does show in that you struggle to communicate fluently off the cuff sometimes. Like you got to process what you're thinking about a hell of a lot more than I do for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Like when we record our videos, it can be like a bit of an existential battle for you to do it. And actually, the outtakes are very funny. People's got it. He's fucked up the 10th day.
Yeah.
No, recording things, especially with cameras. Camera recordings,
it's so unnatural because it's not. Yeah.
Oh, I fucking love
mediated
it.
because by a camera.
I really enjoy it
because it's so like artificial. I'm not talking to a person. I'm record. It's like pre-recording, isn't it? You're recording it to be played to someone after, which is a weird concept. It's a
it's like
No, I don't find that unnatural at all.
Yeah.
Actually, I look forward to watching it back. Being like, oh, what did that seem like?
Narcissist.
Well, it's definitely like an existential curiosity, because that's the only time you see yourself as you actually are. Because a photo is a moment in time. A mirror is a contrivance.
But then that is also that's the same though. Because a video is it's set up. It's not candid. You're still performing a certain way. No matter how natural you think you are. But your base
mannerisms, unless you're like full acting. So okay, well,
I don't think I look as my natural self on camera most of the time.
You're a lot more staccato on camera than you are in real life. Yeah, that's true.
Meaning, sorry,
staccato is like. So you talk normally to a person like this, you're kind of flowing, right? But a staccato person is a think of like Christopher Walken will say a thing, and then the next bullet point. Kind of like that.
Okay.
Why did you make eye contact? Oh no, when it makes eye contact, none of us do. None of us do.
Sorry, I just forgot where I was then.
But yeah, basically I'd say...
Yeah, okay.
But that seems right. If anything, maybe a tad high, but I wouldn't have put you lower than low 70s on that.
No,
fair enough. No, it's like it's.
Yeah, over 60.
Yeah. Talking to people. I'm fucking up now.
Which you can't do.
Can't do now.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah,
people.
no. I guess it depends. Well, because when I first went to Asia, I did the first 30 days with the tour group. So like you're kind of just chucked in with 17 people and you get to know each other pretty much straight away.
Sounds good. Yeah,
it's great. I really enjoyed it. Yeah. But then after the first 30 days, I then went off on my own for the first time, and that was the first time I'd been on my own. Like I'd been on holidays before, been away, but I'd never just been off on my own.
Yeah, no.
Outside of Europe and off on my own.
Most people haven't. Like it's never.
No, but I was like, I had to work myself up to go and talk to people. Like I remember there was.
I can imagine that.
It was the first time we left that group. I left that group and I flew to this island called Koh Phi Phi. Well, flew to Phuket.
Sorry.
I know. And then got a boat to Koh Phi Phi. And then
Koh Phi Phi.
And there were these 4 Australian lads, who were on this boat with us, and we had to get a taxi from one side of the island to the other, where our little resort cabin things were. And we checked in, had a nice little cabin on the beach, and then I was sat at the restaurant for dinner, and then I spent about easily 45 minutes talking, working up the confidence to just go and talk to this group of lads who were sat at a table across the restaurant. Took me ages. I was like, just go up and say hello.
Just fine with yourself. Just go and do it.
Don't. What if it's weird? And then I eventually did it. I walked up, I went over, I went, "Oh, hello lads, how's it going?" And then they just stared at me.
Yeah, fuck off, you pommy bastard.
No, I could have dealt with that. I would have insulted me.
Fair enough.
Thank you. Well, thank you for the feedback. for saying something.
Thank you for the feedback. No, but I had to walk away after silence.
Oh,
And it was the fucking worst.
That is worse.
I went and bought 2 beers and then just went to bed. I was like, no, I'm fucking done.
I'm doing that again.
No, but then I woke up the next morning, I had breakfast, and then I got chatting to this Welsh couple, and then that was it. And then and I think one of the things, because sometimes when you talk to people, it's fucking awkward, because maybe they don't want to talk to you. Maybe they're on holiday with their mates.
Or they're
and
just
they don't,
awkward themselves.
Well, maybe. Or they're on holiday with their mates and they don't want someone coming up and
well,
saying
to be fair, if we walked away and some random guy came up to us and go, "Who the fuck are you?"
Fuck off.
Yeah. You go, what do you want, mate?
Yeah.
Read the fucking room.
Because we're terrible.
Yeah. Well, no, it's like, but
Richard, yeah.
It's just one of the things you have to get used to, which is just sometimes you're going to have awkward interactions with people. You go up and say hello, and then it's like nothing happens. And it's like, all right. And then sometimes you're like, "Oh, hello, mate. We just met, have a good laugh."
Yeah.
And then you go off and you bump into them again later on. And, it's like a... But it was something I had to practice doing. Because I guess I'd gotten comfortable because, we've all known each other since we were kids, right? So it's like, I've been friends with my friends for a very long time.
Yeah.
And never had to make new friends.
Yeah,
because always been friends with my friends.
Yeah.
I'll say friends one more time.
Yeah. There's always been people there, even if it's new groups, you're still there with people that can bounce off of. But going in on your own, I think, quite a...
I think it was something that I was aware that I wasn't good at, or it wasn't my strong suit necessarily. So it was...
And I'll be exactly the same as that, definitely, now.
But but it was one of the better decisions I think I made, because it's... Look, I'll talk to anybody.
Yeah.
But then I also know when to take myself away. Like, I know when I've had enough, or I want to be on my own, and I'll just go. I'll be like, I have no problem with someone saying, "Oh, do you want to come over and out?" I'm like, "No, I'm alright. I'll stay here. I'll see you later. Catch you in a bit."
How easy do you find it to listen as opposed to talk?
I am much better at it than I used to be, I think, because I was one of those people that would be thinking about what I was going to say next rather than listening to what someone was saying. And which, if you listen to what they're saying, that gives you something to go off of, rather than you being like, what interesting thing can I bring up and talk about here? Because then it's awkward, and because you're just shoehorning something you've come up with into a conversation, and
almost
it's
not
awkward.
relating.
Right? And it's like you weren't listening to what I was saying, were you? You just brought something up because I was always too much in my own head for a long time. Still am, but. I'm much better at listening now than I used to be.
Good. Well, get out of that head, you fucking know.
No. It's fun in here.
Actually, that is a pet peeve of mine in terms of introversion and extroversion, rather. Is I definitely notice I have to give a lot of leeway to other people in terms of they want to say about themselves a lot, but for the most part, genuinely, I'm not just saying this to blow smoke, this doesn't happen with you two, but for a lot of people, even people I like a lot, I can't get a word in. Like, if I have something to say about myself, they'll instantly turn it to themselves or just ignore it and go, it's nothing. I'm like, okay, fuck you then. But that's into like my base fear of like my classic, I'm not allowed to have feelings. So I'm just like, right, that's confirmed it, fuck you. I'll just stay like this, But to kind of answer my own question, I do find it quite hard to keep quiet. Like, in a situation I'm interested in, because it's not like, I want to interrupt. It's like, ooh, this is engaging. I've got something to say. I sound like a fucking meeseeks here.
Oh, right.
But also, if the comment, basically, if I'm quiet, you two know I'm bored shitless. You see me in certain situations, and I'm like, if I'm quiet, I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh my god, fucking kill me, this is boring. But if it's like with engagement, I've got to talk, and that's I think mine was like 90 odd on it. But this is insane. What are the metrics for extroversion?
Enthusiasm and assertiveness.
Okay.
So enthusiasm, this is a short one. A moderately high, 70th percentile. Individuals moderately high in enthusiasm are somewhat excitable. Somewhat. Happy and easier to get to know. They will talk more about everything, particularly other people, than the typical person. They laugh or giggle more than average. They would rather spend time around other people than alone, and they tend to like parties. They don't generally keep people at a distance and are not too concerned with keeping things private. They are comparatively positive and optimistic. They warm up quickly to other people. They like stimulation. Excitement.
Why made that noise?
I'll make the noise.
Excitement, activity, and fun. Enthusiastic people are gregarious, encouraging, and people-loving, and tend to be quite positive about what might happen next.
So unenthusiastic people hate fun.
Boring bastards.
Enthusiasm is not strongly associated with political preference, either conservative or liberal, and women are higher in enthusiasm than men. Assertiveness, moderately high, 73rd percentile. Moderately assertive people are more take-charge types. They put their own opinions forward and are somewhat likely to dominate and control social situations. They can be influential and captivating. They have the communication style that is more often associated with leadership. This is good when they are knowledgeable, competent, and able, but less good when they aren't. Yeah.
Good one.
Moderately assertive people tend to be more action-oriented. They are less likely to wait for others to lead the way. Now and then they might be impulsive, in consequence acting too quickly without thinking. Liberals tend to be slightly less assertive than conservatives, and women are slightly less assertive than men. 48 versus 52.
Closer than I would have guessed.
Yes,
Yeah,
me too.
Same as that.
Um,
It's within the margin of error.
Yeah, like
See, this one's really interesting because it's. I think it goes. I think this is fairly right for me.
what was it again?
73rd, and I'm. Well, I think it's. Well, partly the influence of my father, right, who's a very sort of assertive, domineering man, and I think it balances out with my agreeableness quite well. I think things like the extroversion and assertiveness, like it's one of the like you were saying, like I'm not someone that
Add up to a point where it balances out the
right.
agreeableness.
Yes,
So
I'm like polite, and then as soon as someone starts to take advantage,
you're
of
able
that,
to
I'm
step,
like, well, no,
step in.
hang on a second.
Excuse me,
Like,
good sir. You appear to be
Yeah.
espousing the facts associated with a Wally. Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, no. I think it's. I'm grateful for that aspect of my personality for sure. Although saying that, it doesn't mean that I'm comfortable when I do it. Like I don't mind. I can be assertive as and when I need to, but it's still not something I don't relish in it. I don't. I may feel guilty afterwards having done so, but I'm perfectly capable of doing it.
You gotta become a monster, man.
Just rescue your father from the belly of the beast.
Yeah,
From the belly of the
73.
whale.
So
Yeah.
Which ties in quite nicely with what I've been doing at uni. Like, I've been
Strongly worded letters. and
yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
so many strongly worded letters.
extensive emails.
Yeah, and I've only used the word hypocrite and incompetent twice.
Oh. That's strong language.
Yeah, no.
Parental guidance is advised. What about yourself in the all assertiveness
I
spectrum?
think probably down the middle again. I'm thinking probably 50.
I think you're very assertive, actually.
Yeah, I would have said higher. Not as in like.
Some of the things you're reading out, I was thinking, yeah, like half and half, some and some.
You put forward
Right.
your point to the point of like aggressiveness.
Well, and you were saying earlier about like how you've have a look.
Go on, carry on.
No, you were saying earlier like how at work, how like you've said things to people's faces when we were talking about when you do call people out on some
Yeah.
things. You know, like you don't mind like calling someone a wally or a twat or whatever for fucking up or making a mistake or.
Well, I think this would be the opposite to shyness essentially, and I don't think you're shy. Because I think that's more associated with assertiveness than like straight up fun extroversion.
Dominate. What's that? Likely to dominate, control, suit social situations. Not really.
No, you don't do that.
Can be.
Well, but neither do I. I don't take control of social situations. I can do if they're. I mean, like we were saying earlier, like when we stood around, everyone's deciding what to do or whatnot. Like you can intervene and say, well, look, why don't you go over this way? You look over this way. We'll meet up X, Y, and Z or whatever it is.
Clock their heads together and make them fucking conform.
This is where you and I differ.
But then it goes on to say they are less likely to wait for others to lead the way. Now and then they might be impulsive, in consequence acting too quickly without thinking. I don't think I do that.
I do sometimes.
Liberals tend to be, women, yeah.
I don't know, you've airstruck yourself quite a lot on COD.
Yeah, I do that. Run in there.
Neuroticism.
Yep.
Hang on, there's
So, do you think I do all those things?
Oh yeah,
by the
sorry.
way?
Yeah, more than I would say myself.
I was listening to that going on. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm a prick.
Yeah.
Neuroticism is a measure of general sensitivity to negative emotions such as pain, sadness, irritable or defensive anger, fear and anxiety. The two aspects of neuroticism are withdrawal and volatility. And my score is 7th percentile, so very low. People with very low levels of neuroticism almost never focus on the negative elements, anxieties and uncertainties of the past, present and future. So this is where I think this is one of the points where it's off. On
I don't know, you're quite hard to prick into things. I've tried.
To what, sorry?
To prick you into getting annoyed in arguments and stuff. I've tried, it's hard work.
No, but I mean on the points about focusing on negative elements like anxiety. I mean, I thought that the anxieties I had were like a dysfunction. I don't think it was like a general temperamental.
Somewhat of a
I don't think it was a temperamental thing. It was like a kind of my fight or flight response got hijacked by me, or the irrational part of me that likes to freak out about everything. It's very rare for them to face periods of time where they are unhappy, anxious, and irritable, unless facing a serious, sustained, complex problem. Even under the latter conditions, they cope very well, don't worry, and recover quickly. They're very good at keeping their head in a storm, and they almost never make mountains out of molehills. I mean, but that's pretty on point for me. They have very much higher levels of self-esteem, particularly when they are also average or above in extroversion. They are at much lower risk for developing anxiety disorders and depression. Again. When good things happen to them, people with very low levels of neuroticism can appreciate it without questioning whether or not they deserved it. They are unusually satisfied with their relationships and careers. Overall, they're very tolerant of stress and can much more easily accept failure and setbacks as part of life. Very low levels of neuroticism are associated with markedly decreased concern about mental and physical health, far fewer physician and emergency room visits, and very infrequent absenteeism at work and at school. People with very low levels of neuroticism can handle risk strikingly better. If they are average or high in extroversion or openness, they may even enjoy it. They are simply far less affected by uncertainty. They can more easily handle recreational, career, financial and social situations where the possibility of loss is higher. They can consider and implement career changes and other transformations that could enhance their lives very easily. Neuroticism is not a powerful predictor of political belief, either conservative or liberal, and females tend to be higher in neuroticism than males. The typical woman is higher in neuroticism than 60% of the general population of men and women combined. In part, this may be why women report more unhappiness in their relationships, at work, in school, and with their health than men, on average, and why women initiate 70% of all divorces. This difference in neuroticism between men and women appears to emerge at puberty. It is largest in countries such as Norway and Sweden, where the most has been done to ensure equality of outcome between the sexes. This provides strong evidence that biological factors rather than environment and learning account for the dissimilarity. Well, that's pretty interesting.
Shit.
Yeah, this one's a weird one because a lot of that is, well, going back to like what we were saying at school. Like, I was always pretty laid back. I've always been like, but then at the same time, stuff that I wouldn't let stuff bother me, or if something happened, I'm just like fucking whatever. Like, I'm not going to think about it. But I think doing that a lot. I think a lot of that affected me more than I thought it did, or the decision not to let something bother me wasn't as effective as I wanted it to be. So I think a lot of that accrued as I grew older, and then it was like, I don't know, wound up carrying a bigger burden because things actually affected me more than I thought they did, or more than I wanted them to, when I wouldn't let them affect, if that's making any sense. I think
I think so. Yeah, a little bit, but yeah.
Strange one.
But it is extremely low.
I'd put you very low in neuroticism as well, actually. Really,
I agree.
Psychopathically low.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
You up? Yeah.
I thought you were agreeing with him.
Well, no, I think Matt is just more emotionally aware than you. So obviously he's intrinsically going to notice when there's more negative emotions and kind of process them. It doesn't mean he's panicking or feeling anything undue. Because low neuroticism doesn't mean you're immune to bad feelings.
Yeah,
it's more like how you deal with them.
Yeah.
And I think that's
how it affects the rest of you.
Yeah.
How that negative emotion affects.
I would imagine, to be fair, you experience very little negative emotion, nor would it affect you were you to do so. Because I remember you saying you've had like a couple of days where you suddenly get hit by something and you're like, nah, fuck this, and then it's gone. Whereas like with myself or John, who are both quite high on this trait, if someone has like annoyed one of us, that's it. I am pissed off until some time has elapsed or something has kind of contradicted that. But it's a funny one of those two metrics, because I would say withdrawal very, very low. Like, my tendency is to counterattack hard, but volatility is fucking high.
Well, my withdrawal is 10.
Yeah.
10th percentile. And volatility 9.
Yeah, so very low.
These are two very short ones. I'll read through these.
You don't snap at shit.
No, it takes me a long time. You have to push me quite far for me to lose my temper.
Yeah, I get tickled with a feather and I'm just like...
Individuals very low in withdrawal almost never suffer from or are impeded by anticipatory anxiety. God, that was a great sentence. They can handle new, uncertain, unexpected, threatening or complex situations very well. They are far less likely to avoid or withdraw in the face of the unknown than unexpected. People with very low levels of withdrawal feel sad, lonesome, disappointed and grief-stricken very infrequently, and if they do not feel these emotions deeply nor for long. Their lives tend to be markedly free of doubt, worry, embarrassment, self-consciousness and discouragement, even in the face of genuine threat and punishment. They are resistant to and rarely worried about social rejection, that tracks, and almost never feel hurt or threatened. Even when actually hurt, frightened or anxious, they recover strikingly easy and remarkably quickly. People with very low levels of withdrawal are simply not worriers. Technically, withdrawal has been associated with activity in the brain systems that regulate passive avoidance. Those who are liberal politically are slightly higher in withdrawal than conservatives, and women are higher in withdrawal than men. This goes back to what we were saying about yourself earlier. I think before we were recording, we were talking about the experience of feelings. So I think this kind of tracks for your difficulty in being able to kind of conceptually engage with that, because while you may feel them, you might not feel them for very long.
And they're very low amounts.
Right, and then you don't spend a lot of time reflecting
other things
on them.
take over, basically.
Yeah.
a bigger proportion of thinking.
To be in a
logic and
similar
things.
kind of score, sort of like maybe lower than mine.
I don't know. Yeah, not sure. Don't know if I would get that low.
Volatility, very low, 9th percentile. Individuals very low in volatility are highly stable and predictable in their moods. They are almost never irritable and feel very little disappointment, frustration, pain, and loneliness. People find them easy to be with and can frequently relax around them. They almost never express their frustration, disappointment, and irritability, and appear very reasonable when they do so. Even on those infrequent occasions when they become stirred up, upset, angry, or irritated, they calm down very quickly. They are not at all argumentative and very rarely lose their composure. Even if highly provoked in a dispute, a person of very low volatility will rarely react in kind. Such people remain calm and unperturbed even when highly stressed. Volatile people tend to get upset if something bad does happen, while people high in withdrawal tend to be concerned that something bad might happen. Technically, volatility has been associated with activity in the brain systems that regulate fight, flight, or freeze. It's not strongly regulated to political preference, and women are higher in volatility than men. 57 to 42. Yeah, I know. I also would have gone the other way.
I think it's because we associate the word volatility with anger.
Well, and I
But
guess
it means
if
like
they are on
upset.
average
Yeah.
higher in neuroticism, experience of negative emotion, that might elicit that kind
Yeah.
of volatile reaction.
And with women's monthly cycles, I think that could come into it.
Not help.
Yeah.
As much as they wouldn't
so I
like
think-
hearing that.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, girls.
Fuck yeah. Sorry, girls.
Yeah.
See, that's
Yeah, I know
interesting listening to that, because as a high volatility person, that suggests that one should be a flapper in situations. But I think that's one of my discerning traits, is I don't panic about stuff. It's very strange. I get really stressed out about really stupid shit, like being late or traffic. But if there was like
Traffic.
an army advancing, I'd be completely covered. It's fucking strange. Like genuinely, when there's like danger, like if I might die, I'm like, that was easy.
I think my withdrawal would be lower.
Yeah, but when have you ever been in that situation for you to know that?
Yeah, true.
I've been in a lot of
Traffic.
constant
I've been in a lot of traffic.
you don't know, man. You weren't there. You don't know Aylesbury.
I do know those.
But no, I've been in a lot of like fighty situations.
Sure,
when a lot of
sure.
stuff like jumps out on you on the road and
Right,
shit as
right.
well. Because I know people going when I've been driving. Let's say someone's pulled out and they shit themselves, and I was going,
Right.
and then after a while I'm like, you can't. But in the
It's
moment,
like a delayed reaction.
yeah, it just like
So like after the battle, you were like,
just like this fucker's trying to kill us. Did you see that? I'm gonna go back there.
stabbing corpses.
That's what I do in Fallout.
Double tap.
The dismemberer.
I am the dismemberer.
Don't forget the tea bag.
Oh. Press circle to defile the kill.
Okay, openness to experience is a primary dimension of creativity, artistic interest, and intelligence, particularly verbal intelligence. Openness, Dan dabbed again. Openness is a measure of interest in novelty, art, literature, abstract thinking, philosophy, as well as sensitivity to aesthetic emotions and beauty. The two aspects of openness are intellect and aesthetics, and my score is 15th percentile.
What, low?
That surprises me.
Really? What
Very
the fuck?
much.
You literally just did a philosophy degree.
Right? And didn't fail.
Yeah.
No.
They are comparatively... again, this was 2018. This is before I'd made the decision to...
Before you found yourself.
Huh?
Before you found
Before I
yourself.
found myself. Yeah. And understood myself.
In Thailand, bro.
You got fingered on the beach.
No, it was after Thailand. I didn't get fingered on the
I did the fingering.
well,
Little finger bird.
no, I got fingered, it just wasn't on the beach.
Or in my arse. What?
Well, everyone should have a prostate exam at some point.
Actually, I've been meaning to do that.
What, yourself?
And for the third time.
That's a hat trick.
Fuck off.
They are comparatively disinterested in learning. Sorry, let me miss the sentence. People with low levels of openness are more conventional, conservative people. They are not known for their curiosity or interest in novelty or change. They are comparatively disinterested in learning, particularly for its own sake, and generally stick with what they know. They rarely engage in prolonged abstract thinking and seldom consider philosophical issues such as the meaning of belief systems and ideologies, which I've spent literally 4 years kind of doing. They do not find it necessary to attend cultural events such as movies, concerts, dance, recitals, plays, poetry readings, gallery openings and art shows. I love galleries. Failing to find them meaningful or engaging. I know, but this I used to though. Look, I used to just dismiss loads of this stuff just as silly, pointless nonsense. So this may have tracked earlier me than me now. They don't typically enjoy writing. I never did. And stay away from complex problems and abstract ideas. I did. I used to stay away from those a lot. No, but I think I undersold myself to myself. I think I
maybe it's because you hadn't tangibly written them down. You didn't see yourself as having dealt with them.
Perhaps. They read less than the typical person and stick to more mainstream material when they do so. They have a narrow range of interests and a conventional vocabulary. They have some difficulty with abstract thinking and learn less quickly, as well as being less intrinsically interested in doing so. They come up with new ideas infrequently and have some difficulty getting their thoughts across to others, particularly if they are average or below in extroversion. People lower in openness like to stay on the beaten path and find satisfaction in the tried and true, particularly if they are average or above in orderliness. They avoid difficult intellectual problems or challenges. People low in openness can often adapt well to situations or occupations that are more routinized and predictable. Because of this, they have little trouble fitting in at the bottom of hierarchies. They are better suited than those who are more open to entry-level repetitive rote positions because they are rarely compelled to think up new ways of doing things. They are infrequently creative and revolutionary thinkers, thus they shake things up much less than average, particularly if they are also agreeable and less assertive. Individuals low in openness are less entrepreneurial in spirit and more appreciative of conventional employment. They have little interest in creating new ventures, whether for profit, curiosity, or personal transformation. At least moderately high levels of openness appear necessary to the formation and leadership of business and other forms of complex organization, although conscientiousness appears required for the attention to detail and process management that such organizations also always need. People lower in openness have a narrower, more focused range of interests. This makes it easier for them to settle on a single path in life, to specialize to a necessary degree, and to create an integrated identity. People lower in openness also rarely undermine their own convictions or belief by excessive questioning. They are generally not intellectual rebels, revolutionaries or protesters. Openness is the dimension that best predicts political allegiance, with conscientiousness, particularly the aspects of orderliness coming in the second place. Those who are liberal politically are very much more likely to be high in openness than conservatives, and women and men differ very little in openness at the trait level, although there are differences in the aspect levels. Okay, there was a lot there.
Yeah. So what was it? Aesthetics and...
So, as a measure of interest in novelty, art, literature, abstract thinking.
I know, so what were the two metrics called?
The two metrics, sorry. The two metrics are intellect, which I also score low in, and aesthetics, you're right, sorry.
Yeah.
And then moderately low for that as well.
Yeah, I think you've done goofed here.
Yeah.
Well, I think I may have been a different person when I took the test.
Just a completely different framework of thinking.
Yeah, well, I mean, when I took this, I had just arrived in New Zealand. I spent like a week in Auckland before I went off and did a tour around the North Island, and that's when I did this test. I had a week of nothing to do, so this was one of the things I did, and it was in New Zealand where I decided, I'd spent the last probably year or so before that starting to read more after the weird brain epiphany. I've been listening to people like Jordan Peterson, Russell Brand, Steven Pinker, Jonathan Haidt. I've been paying more attention to the kind of cultural and social stuff. I was realizing I had an interest in because I talked about me realizing the contradiction between my own two beliefs.
Yeah.
I was starting to pay more attention to what I thought. I was starting to listen to, because I grew up in a kind of sort of left wing milieu. My dad's left wing, so a lot of the people around me was kind of like the same. Same with my sisters. And I made a conscious decision during this period to start listening to conservative voices or people that I didn't agree with or people that I hadn't heard before. So this was kind of like I was in the middle of transitioning from not giving any of this stuff any attention whatsoever, paying no attention to politics, no attention to ideologies, I didn't understand any of it, to, and I had not long been back from Asia where I went to Cambodia, which is why I went to the killing fields, and which is where that was a really transformative experience for me, because that was my first, because my conception of Marxism prior to that was critique of capitalism, and that was it. And I was like, well, you're allowed to do that, so fine. And then going and standing on a field where there were bodies underneath me, and listening to the manifestation of this ideology in practice, and the implication that it had resulting in the deaths of millions of people, I was like,
this is bad.
I should probably start paying attention to some of this shit. This seems, and not only that, but recognizing the similarities between the conversation that happened in Cambodia and the way we were having racial, sex, gender conversations back at home. Like, basically it's the same conversation, different context.
Well, the oppressor and
oppressor narrative, and the kind of the more proximate theory and deeper theory is the kind of same. And so then it was about a year after that I went to New Zealand, and that was when I kind of took this test. So I think I was, as you said, transitioning,
opening up, as it were.
Two experiences.
This basically translates quite well to our sensory versus intuitive metric, actually. Because the intellect on there is obviously the N.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't. Because intellect shouldn't be seen as like you are not intellectual.
I know. Yeah, it's an odd word to use. Yeah.
It's for It's definitely like, are you interested in stuff that
capacity
doesn't
for
exist?
abstract thinking,
or do you like stuff that exists and it moves and shit? Yeah.
Because I would say, so for this one, my intellect rating would be very high. Aesthetics, I'm not actually that asked about.
I'm not sure where I'd come out on this. It's quite a tough one. I'd say this is the most tough one to get for myself.
Probably middling. So I think this
again
links to the conception understanding we spoke about earlier. So I think
I would have been very, very low years
probably
ago.
back in the past, But it everything does require some training when it's not naturally your forte, right? So I say you're very, very good at understanding, because I speak in a lot of highfalutin waffle quite a lot of the time. You understand at least 90% of what I'm saying, and I'm a pretentious fuck. So that shows you get a bit. I would say the next step for you would definitely be to like come up with more shit in that realm.
Highfalutin, you're right.
Highfalutin, like the conversation we had to prompt doing all this, was it last week or whatever? I think you got lost. About halfway through.
Yeah, but we did get down to is the table real? Are there really tables?
Yeah, that's where I shut off and go, this ain't for me.
This is bollocks, right?
Yeah, totally.
That was very, very like. That was so far between the lines that there were the lines we thought of were conceptual, let alone
the line is a that to you.
Yeah, then
what is
that is
Friends.
Joey, friends.
Yeah. Let's talk about past the line.
Lines a that to you. Yeah, no, metaphysics is tricky. It's not an easy. Took me. When I was introduced to it, I was like, "What are you talking about?"
I couldn't follow that.
What a fucking
I'd say your conceptual understanding is good though. You do get it, but I'd say that honestly, this is probably my strongest.
But to what the point about what you were saying about training.
Yeah.
Like you can you can be introduced to these things and they can be foreign and strange, but again, if you sit with it and you just think about it and you keep talking about it, like it becomes relevant. Like there is something about, because I tried to. Well, we won't go into it, but because I was trying to talk to you about the difference between what appears in experience, as in what conversations we're having about what appears, and then conversations about what's on the other side of experience, right? So like all of this seems external, right? The things you're experiencing seem as if they're outside of you, But part one of the argument is that what you're experiencing is appearing in your consciousness, and then there's the thing in itself, whether it's a table or some other spiritual reality or some reality of ideas. And this is all speculation. This is all just it's just smart people.
Okay, I think I understand that a little bit more now. So is it almost like that you're like operating in a different space, and you're almost imagining everything around you?
Yeah, well, like you're having an interaction with...
And you're placing the stuff in your mind to facilitate what's happening. Like Dan and Matt coming over, and I'll facilitate that you come in and we sit here, or we're in a room, but we need to sit somewhere. So I guess I'll make chairs and I'll put a table there.
Like you're like filling the contents of your experience, kind of like it's happening automatically.
Yeah,
you're experiencing what you take to be
but
reality.
I'm making it up.
Yeah, you're representing reality to yourself. Oh, excellent. That's the right response.
You've blown my mind and my heart. Okay, I think I understand that more now.
Yeah, well, I mean, because
I do.
No, I can put it in there's a scientific way of thinking about this as well, right? So it's like there's phenomena occurring in the world, and we want to understand what's going on. We're having an intuitive experience of it. Say, take this laptop for example. So consider that you've never seen one before, ever, and you came across this thing. You would have an immediate experience of what this is here. And you might begin to think about, well, what's going on? Why might this be working? There are buttons. Some things happen when I press the buttons, and you come up with hypotheses or possible explanations to explain this thing that you've never seen before. And you conceive of those, and then you've got what's appearing immediately to you, and then you take that as your little model of what's going on here. But then there's actually the laptop itself. And all the mechanisms that are happening on the inside that you don't have access to.
Yeah.
Right? And so you've got this weird model that you're operating on, but then there's something else happening. There's something happening on the other side of your understanding.
Yes, right.
Right? So that's like the thing in itself.
Yeah.
And so in scientific terms, that's when people use the word objectivity or objectively the case, they're kind of hinting at that there are some things in the world. We're a thing in the world with senses, a capacity for reason.
Yeah.
There are things that we're interacting with that are causing reactions with my senses that are eliciting an intuitive response. And then we can use our capacity for reason to think about that intuitive response and then look for the counterintuitive, which is what science as a method does, because it's not like if you get a cup of water, you put straw in it, it looks like the straw's bendy, doesn't it? Because the water, the reflection of the water, whatever it is, makes the straw look like it does this. Yeah. But it's not. The straw's flat, but your intuitive response is that it's bending. Yeah. So you could. Yeah. So it's like what's beyond appearance. So appearances can be deceiving, and so the metaphysics part of it would be like what's on the other side of even our science,
understanding.
Of our understanding. Yeah. And you can fill that with an objective external reality. You can fill that with a god of one form or another, and a creative force. You can fill it with another realm of perfect ideas, like Plato does in ancient Greece. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff as well. Or there's different conceptions of God, but that's when we get into speculative philosophy, because the tricky part is that all we ever have is experience. All we ever have is what's in here. Even when we have scientific methods or we have other mechanisms, right? If we have mathematics, right, or physics or equations or geometry, right, that all of that is still appearing in our own consciousness, even though it's helping us think about what we hope to be an external world. But then, if whatever is on the other side of that, we can't really say anything about it, because we can only say things about what's here.
Yeah.
Right. What we're essentially doing
And that's metaphysics, right?
Yeah.
Like that's in a way.
Intuitive conversation, as Matt's alluding to, that is. Imagine you're looking at a picture on a telly, and all you can see is that there is a telly box and there's some shit moving on the screen.
Yeah.
What we're doing is basically trying to
Say what the broadcast that's coming through.
Yeah, so let's say you can see Spider-Man
Yeah.
on the telly.
Yeah.
You can see loads of bits of coloured
Dots.
pixels.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do in the more intuitive conversations is basically, judging by what we can see, what is the coding behind that? That's essentially...
What's sending the
So what's the
image,
programming of it?
Yeah, the signal. What's producing the signal?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's all it is. It's basically extrapolation and reverse engineering from what you can see and then what seems obvious or logical to be causing that.
But the problem is that, like, philosophically, it is just a bunch of question marks because no one really fucking knows, ultimately. In my opinion. But we assume things to be the case, like that there's an external reality, or like there's a God. Because religious people, and it seems strange when you have two people who come from these different positions, it can seem strange to the other one, right? So for a religious person, and if you say to them to look out of the window or look at anything, and you say, what do you intuitively see? They say God. I see God.
Right.
I see God in reality.
Because he created it, so I see his creation.
Yeah, I see God in the creation of what appears in my experience.
Yeah.
Whereas for like someone who's like materially or scientifically minded, you say, well, look out, what do you see? They say, I see objects, I see pieces, I see
matter.
Yeah, I see matter, I see like objects, I see fundamental particles that are combined to produce molecules and all the rest of it. And if you got both of those two people in a room to express those positions, they would seem alien to the other. And so, like, in a part, and we're on temperament actually, so this ties in, that, I mean, there's like the social programming, like the milieu in which you're just born into, right? And there's like the trends of thought of the age, and then also the temperament of individuals. Because it's like there's your temperament or your personality, arguably, has an impact on the kinds of these broad metaphysical claims about true reality, whether it's a God or whether it's an external world of objects or the nature of that God, or whether there's nothing, it's just mind, there is no reality. That those are, whether or not you subscribe to one of those viewpoints, has to do with the social context in which you're born in, and possibly like just your personality, right? Like you're an agreeable person, you're open to abstract ideas, so maybe you're inclined to thinking, oh, everything's a unified totality, and the mind of God develops through the progression of human consciousness, or whatever, or you're orderly, or you're conscientious, and you're low in openness, and so you're reductive. You see objects and material and fundamental particles, and it's like, but that's got nothing to do with, like, you haven't arrived there rationally. It is a part of like just who you are, and the context in which you're born in, which impacts whether or not you're susceptible to these kinds of claims. And then you can change, and your views on these things can change, because non-religious people can become religious. They can grow to see God in where they couldn't see it before, and people who are religious can lose their faith and fail to see God where they saw God before. It's I don't know where to go from there, but it's fascinating. But fucking welcome to metaphysics.
Oh, cool. I think that's just another banal topic for the next recording, really. The nature of God and existence.
Yeah, fundamental reality.
I'm paying up for it, and then Jason will be really bored.
No, you seem pretty keen. We've only got 3 more pages of this.
Okay, let's
get through this, and then we can wrap up. So, intellect, 11th percentile. Note, and this is what you were saying earlier, do not confuse the personality aspect of intellect with IQ. Intellect is a measure of interest in abstract ideas, essentially, while IQ is a measure of processing speed, verbal ability, working memory, and problem-solving capacity, and is better measured with a formal IQ test. It is perfectly possible to have a high IQ and low score on the personality trait of intellect. People low in intellect are unlikely to be engaged with ideas and abstract concepts. They are less interested in learning philosophical concepts, seeing little use in them. People low in intellect do not appreciate too much information, particularly if it is complex. They are substantially less intellectually curious and infrequently tackle and solve complex abstract problems. They are unlikely to engage in issue-oriented discussions or to enjoy reading idea-centered books. Fucking love it. They can be less articulate, particularly if average or lower in extroversion, experiencing some trouble formulation and communicating their ideas. They tend to have a vocabulary of less than normal breadth and depth, and are likely to stick with the tried and true rather than learning new ideas and skills. They are less likely to enjoy being exposed to novel, creative concepts and are relatively uninterested in adapting or seeking out new experiences and situations. People low in intellect rarely find complex, rapidly changing occupations to their liking and are therefore more likely to fail at them. They are much better suited to stable, straightforward and more traditional occupations where the rules for success are well defined and tend not to change. Liberals are higher in intellect than conservatives, and women are lower than men in intellect. This is probably a difference in interest. People high in intellect compared to aesthetics are more likely to prefer the sciences to the arts. The mean percentile for women in general is 45, for men it's 55. Aesthetics, or any comments on the intellect? Or we kind of covered that, haven't we?
Yeah, we banged through the intellect, I think. Yeah.
Finish off with a conversation about metaphysics. Aesthetics, 32nd percentile.
Don't worry, I'll knock you out for that.
In the original Big Five aspect scale model, the openness factor was entitled openness to experience. And its aspects were called intellect and openness. For the sake of clarity, we have deviated from this and use openness or openness to experience to refer to the factor, level, trait, and intellect and aesthetics to refer to its aspects. Generally speaking, a person's aesthetic score reflects their creativity. People who are moderately low in aesthetics do not find beauty particularly important. They tend not to require an outlet for their creative ability and will certainly not wither away without it. They don't particularly appreciate art or beautiful craft and are less sensitive to colour and architectural form. They are not typically collectors and very rarely pursue it passionately. They are less imaginative, more rarely daydream, and reflect less often than the average. If they enjoy music or other art forms, their tastes tend toward the conventional and popular. They are often less musical or artistic themselves. They do not generally become immersed in a book or a movie in their own thoughts. They tend to be quite stable and conventional. At least moderate levels of creativity tend to be necessary for entrepreneurial success and prove comparatively useful at the top of hierarchies, even in very conservative occupations such as banking, accounting, law, which need creative people in leadership positions to provide new visions and directions. Yeah, I mean I think that tracks. Like I enjoy music. If I'm going to listen to music, I listen more to classical or jazz, stuff that doesn't have lyrics, because I can't think if I listen to music with lyrics.
Right.
I can if I listen to classical or like lo-fi, like stuff that's like sort of in the background, I can read a book or I can think about something. Whereas if there's lyrics, I can't do both at the same time.
See, I
do enjoy like rap, hip hop, indie rock. I've been listening to a lot actually of psychedelica, like acid rock from like the 70s and the 80s, like Jimi Hendrix and.
Nice. See, I have something similar, but not the same as that. So for me, listening to music without lyrics isn't so I can think about stuff. It's more so I can like feel the music more.
Yes.
Because when I listen to that sort of music, I don't like doing anything else. I don't like music generally as a background thing. I have it as like a priority.
Right.
Like,
Something you're intensely engaged in.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So when I do listen to stuff with like without lyrics, it's more of like I absorb it more.
Beautiful.
With lyrics, I engage with it more. But with music that has no lyrics or it's more like classical whatever, it's more absorbed, more like directly absorbed into me, whereas like I say the more lyrical stuff is more of a engagement thing.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. I find that especially with like strings, like with classical music, like violins.
Mm-hmm.
I
like
fucking love
violin,
violins. Like I don't know what I don't know what it is about them. They're just in you.
Yeah, quite sharp. The sharp sounds. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. It's probably not to get too well. It's vibrations, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like there's something I don't know. It's like a frequency that you respond to, and it like you said, it kind of flows through you. It like touches you in a way. Yeah. No, I love. There's a gallery in Edinburgh, the National Gallery, at the bottom of the Mound. I go there I've been there. Like I used to go there as often as I could. Loads of really, really nice, like impressionist. It starts off with like Christian work from like the 1100s, 1300s, and then goes all the way. There's a big building goes all the way around. A lot of Dutch, Italian, French, like some Van Gogh in there a couple of times.
I don't get a lot from paintings.
No, fair enough.
No, I'm the same.
Yeah.
When we were in the Vatican, we saw about 5 and like, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
It's like it's another thing.
That's something which doesn't add up. Music, I get really like into that, but then paintings does nothing for me. Really.
I prefer landscapes than sort of like busy pictures depicting a scene of people doing stuff. Some of those I find interesting, but like if it's like an animal like a stag, there's one that's a stag there which I love, or there's this big hunting scene, it's massive painting, and it's just like this woodland. Reminds me of like the woodlands around here, like Wendover, or sort of like and it's like they're like hunting like in the 1700s. He's got like pheasants and rabbits like hanged up or whatever. I don't know. Yeah, I prefer landscapes than.
See, what's interesting I find with music and like paintings and what have you, thinking about it just there, I think I'm more inclined to. I'm trying to relate to the person behind it or the people in it than I am to like look at the colours or feel the music. So if I'm listening to music, I'm very, very wordy with it.
What does it mean?
Yeah. What does it mean? I get very vivid pictures conjured in my mind about stuff, and it gets me in all kinds of tangents. Makes me think like quite deeply about things. Gets me kind of out of the lizard brain of the kind of banal surface thought. But particularly if we're looking at paintings, I'm very much into stuff about people or things that have some kind of familiarity to me that I can then use as a springboard,
like a time in history or something.
To imagine,
like an event.
The one I've got in my mind. It's funny. I don't know if it's I can't remember if it's a painting or on a massive tapestry. I forget which one. It's in a room in the Vatican. It's a depiction of. I won't bore you with the details, but it's basically like a Roman battle, and I was just like gawking at that for ages, just trying to. Just being there and knowing exactly what it was like and seeing everything and interacting with everyone and seeing how it played out, that kind of thing. So I think with aesthetics, I'm quite bad because I think I don't interact with things like on a superficial level quite well. I'm like, okay, so I come from the film world, right? When people are like, oh, that film's brilliantly shot, I'm like, yeah, it is, but I kind of expect that as a default. It's a cinema, it should look good. Maybe that's me being flippant. But I'm more caring about like what is the meaning behind it, more so than like.
It was a nice shot. You want to know why it was like what's depicting.
Unless it's like exceptionally good as a like composition.
Yeah.
Obviously being pretentious. I'm much more interested in what's going on and who's in it and what it means. So you'll find like even in the company, my music is always very lyric heavy. That I listen to, which is surprising because I don't really like rap. But yeah, it's a kind of contradiction for me because I think really high on intellect, but for someone who's that high on it, surprisingly low on aesthetics. Not like really low, probably like 50 odd. But there's because I have this weird thing where you see me like, particularly with people in the world, I will be like, you look a twat, and like if you're too much a curveball or a renegade, I'm like, nah, I hate you, can't deal with it. Or like music that is. Stuff that's different and awkward for the sake of it, I can't stand it.
Yeah.
It really, really wants to.
Almost like it's ingenuine.
Yeah, basically. Exactly. Disingenuous, yeah. I hate jazz. I can't stand it. Sorry, Lacey, I can't stand it. Because he'll play these things that it's a work of genius. It's a fucking mess.
Yeah,
That's right.
I've never been able to get on board with it at all.
It sounds like Through the Fire and Flames, but just for nerds, basically. Not the Dragon Force, it's like a Giga Chad band. But you know what I mean, I just say like...
Yeah.
No accounting for tastes.
I'm just like, yeah, it just makes me think, oh my god, shut up, you absolute nerd. But
I don't know, I think it's like it's the sort of ad-lib, improvisational, exploratory. It's not like, here's our song, this is how it goes. It's like, here's the framework in which, or the, I don't know, here's the starting point, fuck knows where we're going to end up, right? And it's like 3 or 4 people with some, I like saxophones, someone on a cello, bass guitar, drums. It's like, I don't know. It's I've only recently gotten into it. We've been to a few jazz bars when we've been to places like Prague or the Netherlands, or there was a jazz bar in Edinburgh that I quite liked. But yeah, I don't know. It's I wouldn't say I'm like an avid jazz fan, but it's just something I've been enjoying more and more recently. I think because the bar I was working at, the music that they played was a lot from like this like rock from like 60s, 70s, 80s, and this was something again that I discredited for like ages. And I was like, I had this realization about 6 months ago. I was like, what the hell have I been doing with my life? And why haven't I been listening? I was like listening to the Beatles. I was like, my God, these guys are good. After psychedelics. And
is that one of their albums or what?
No,
I know.
No, I'm slow.
I was just being a dick.
But so do you guys? I know like I said, you come from the film world. Do you have like any creative outlets? Do you have anything you do that you would consider creative, artistically or otherwise, or
not anymore?
Just draw or.
But when I do, because I'm very much
sing.
like, what is the outcome of this? So I would never just like fuck about with
Do
creative
for
ideas
fun.
for the sake of it.
Sure.
There must be a reason, an end goal to it. But whenever I get something creative, I'm always like, oh fuck, I forgot I was really good at this. Because I just don't do it. Because the world doesn't call for it a lot. There's enough people trying to be fucking musicians and, cinematographers and
Picasso.
what have you. Yeah, Picasso or indeed the Pope. I'm much more inclined to use my creativity for stuff that is purposeful and has an impact. So like, in the business world, you can get along all right if you're just a hard worker and you've got a good model, but you're not creative. But there's a very distinct ceiling on that. You can't expand past a certain point, but you need to have that vision and the odd little curveball to really do something a bit different, a bit special. Yeah.
No, well, I play the guitar. I've been playing the guitar again since the last 4 years. Played it a bit when I was a kid.
I remember you doing a little bit of that, yeah.
And then I stopped playing. Once I turned 18, I just played it less and less and less until the only thing I could play was Hey There Delilah. And I fucking hate that song. Just because it was... No, I know, but when it's the only thing you can play...
Got sick of it.
And you're like, I fucking can't stand this anymore.
Yeah.
And I've taken up whittling. Like with wood. That little spiral dagger that I made the other day. I've been making chess pieces.
Oh yeah, I think I remember you saying that a while ago.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah.
Trying to make like a whole chess set.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or
Full druid.
Oh, wooden. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I've done some painting a couple of times. Did a couple of follow-alongs with Bob Ross.
I've seen those. Yeah.
God. Yeah.
Dad's old house in Brooklyn. Yeah.
I
suppose. Yeah.
I think that's it really. I don't like singing. I'm bad at it. I've always had this like weird thing. I'd like to do stand up comedy.
Yeah.
Not just
Not
stand
just stand up.
I'd like to not be sat down right now if it's possible. But I've never done it.
Fucking loves musical chairs, this bloke.
I have a. But yeah, I think that's it. Creative wise,
Yeah.
I don't think I do anything else. I don't think. But that concludes
The draw.
my big
Big
five
five
personality
/10.
traits / our discussion over the aspects of it. Any final thoughts, comments,
Yeah.
whimsical
So
insight?
you're the nicest guy. Jason's a stateless guy, and I'm a dick.
Nice.
Scientifically, quantifiably proven.
By Jordan and co.
Yeah.
Jordan and Co. Well,
Horses for courses, man. We're all here for a reason.
So
you
is
should
that.
We've
fulfill
all got
that.
different roles to
You should
fill,
fulfill that purpose. Exactly that. So unless you're completely cracked the way you are, it's probably for good reason, and you should double down.
Work
on
as
it.
a team.
Yeah. Cooperative, not competitive game theory.
Go team.
Go team, yeah, vibes, bro.
Yeah, through the goal hole.
So,
Through the goal hole.
that was too hard.
Do
Someone's
another
going to get
goal.
hurt. So, from all of us at the Sons of Aries, this is a vibe, and we'll see you next time.
See you later, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Take care of yourselves.